Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board. We do have a public hearing first this evening, so I'll call the public hearing to order at 7:02. If everybody could rise and say the pledge with me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the public hearing is on the Emergency Connectivity Fund Grant Award presentation. Scott or Brian, did you want to?
Mr. Gross.
I was going to punt it over to Steve, but no. Well, he is here, but as you know, we received a grant, we called it an ECF grant, and this was the grant in which we were able to secure funding for laptops for our staff here in the Goffstown School District. And we received this grant, and it was for $400 per device. Steve, I'm trying to remember, 176?
440 devices at $400 a device.
Yeah. So I'll have to do the quick math on that one. But so the really nice thing about this is that it's enabling us to put a laptop device not only for all of our teachers who already have a laptop, but a lot of our support staff, our paraprofessionals, some of our head custodians, as well as key folks within our district who don't have access, to that. Who and in many cases they work with students. So that's really the gist of it. And we've already kind of signed all the paperwork. But one of the things that we forgot to do was, in order to do this, we have to accept those funds. So
Mr. Gross, that was 440 devices at 400, so $176,000.
Yep, that's what I thought it
Is
was.
that the number?
Yep, 176. Yep.
So you'd be looking for a motion
to accept
$176,000 through the Emergency Connectivity Fund.
Yep.
I'll move it.
All right, by Ellen, do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Shane. Is there any further discussion or questions for Scott?
And we have not approved this before, because I know we've heard of this before.
We've not approved this
Right.
before.
Okay.
So I will just share one more thing. This emergency connectivity funding is available for another year at this point. We're not quite ready to do this, but we're getting closer to being ready to talk about a one-to-one device environment. This fund would be available if we acted before the end of June next year. Stephen, I believe is the date.
The current filing window 3 is closed. I'm under the impression they're going to have a filing window number 4.
Yeah.
You have to submit it during the filing window. They will pay for up to $100 per eligible person with one device. The criteria is the device has to be able to go home.
Has to go home. So this could be a grant fund that you might hear about in the future as well. So as we're exploring kind of moving towards a one-to-one device, this would be how we would pay for that.
And it's one-to-one staff?
So we were able, I don't know that Stephen gave the exact numbers, but historically, we only provided laptops to professional staff, to teachers, to administrators, and this is going to allow us to provide devices to all of our paraprofessionals, other support staff, so that everybody got in on this. By switching from Apples to PCs, we were able to purchase 40% more devices. Same money.
So Ellen, just to answer your question on staff, the only staff who will not be getting a device through this program are your regular custodians and your food service workers who do not need a device as part of their daily duties for the school. Every other position was eligible and we applied for it.
Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else have any questions for Scott? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. I'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are unanimous. And before we adjourn, I will open to public comment on the hearing. Is anybody here for public comment on the hearing? All right, seeing none, I will close public hearing, public comment, and ask for an adjournment of the public hearing.
Move to adjourn public hearing?
Thank you, Alan. Do I have a second? By Ginny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are unanimous. So now I will call the Goffstown School Board meeting at 7:07. And if we could rise again and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, guys. So we'll start with correspondence.
None this evening.
Okay. We'll move on to commendations, good news. But before we go into that, I would like to welcome Lily Hazel Baker. I said that right?
You did.
So she is our newest teacher's rep. She was voted on last week or the week before, students rep, not teacher.
Student rep.
So we welcome you, Lily.
Thank you.
Caleb he brought you in last
Yes.
time.
Now, you're going to be
so-
better than the Hagner kid, right?
I don't know if I can beat that. That kid is, he's a legend. But
Well,
yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
We've been very fortunate to have
Yeah.
wonderful student reps, so welcome.
Yes.
Thank you so
And,
much.
And if you have any questions, anytime, raise your hand.
Thank you.
So
glad
with
to have
that,
you.
do you have
Yeah.
commendations, good news?
Yeah, so I was
Perfect.
just going to say, since like the year is coming to an end, we've had a very successful academic awards night, scholarship night, co-curricular night, and baccalaureate. And I know our seniors are anxiously awaiting graduation, and I just want to congratulate them on all that they've done. Very proud. So yeah, thank you,
Lily. Anyone else, commendations, good news?
Read it.
I'd like to follow up on that. There was another thing that happened, and that was our Motico Spring Gala, and I'd like to just acknowledge that both Lily and Caleb, not only do they sit on the school board, but they can sing and dance. And that was really great.
Thank you.
So, and then on the academic awards night, I had the opportunity to go to that, and I have to say, you know, there's those that achieve academically, but there were so many other things that the kids are bringing to the school, into the community, and a lot of those things got mentioned. And it's also the teachers behind the kids that allow them to really, you know, expand and explore. So it was pretty amazing. The kids here are pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you.
I also had the opportunity to attend the Mountain View Middle School retirement party, and it had 6 retirees. And they did, it was a lot of fun, and yes, Wendy played the triangle, she was rock star, and
Triangle.
never knew the talent. Anyways, there was also a lot of great stories from the students and from the colleagues. You learned so much about the teachers at these retirement parties, so I just wanted to acknowledge our 6
Awesome.
teachers.
Thank
So-
you.
Oh, wait a second, 142 years of experience leaving at the middle school.
Wow.
So-
Thank you, Retta. Go ahead, Ellen.
Yep, Maple Ave had their annual Memorial Day
Yes.
concert?
Program.
Program, okay. It's always wonderful to see the kids enjoying this, and it was a beautiful day, so.
It was.
It was very nice. It's something I know I look forward to every year.
Absolutely.
To see all these kids out there singing and whatever. And,
Yeah.
one student spoke about, I think it was her father or her grandfather was in the military, and it was just really sweet, and it's a nice event that the school does every year.
Yes.
So it was
And
good.
on GTV this year, which was nice. They did
Yes.
a great job, as always.
Yep.
And the weekend before that, they had the sweltering father-daughter dance.
Yes.
It was about
Yes, that was good.
98 degrees and 95% humidity in the gym at Maple Ave,
Yeah.
but there they were.
There they were.
I should have said that. I had 2 there.
Nice.
And Mrs.
Awesome.
Gogan had a big field day this week, so there's been lots of
stuff
doings going on.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had a Memorial Day program too.
Oh, okay. Nice. Shane, did you have your hand up? And then
Yep.
Ginny, go ahead.
I have a couple. I believe I saw today that our Mountain View Middle School softball team advanced from the semifinal round to the championship. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's correct.
Right? Yep.
So they're going to
Yay.
be playing the championship game, so congratulations to them. And also congratulations to our middle school students who are stepping up into high school this week, and our high school students who are graduating this week. So
Yes.
just want to send my congratulations to them. Lots of hard work, and it all pays off in the end, so.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shane. Go ahead, Jenny.
I went for a volunteer experience at Upreach this week, and I was amazed at the amount of everyone's concerned about mental health these days, and all of the programs that they offer for people of all ages. And it just happened when I was there, one of our students was there on the vocational program, and it was just really amazing to see a student working with a horse and learning how to work through issues and learning how to follow directions and all kinds of things. It was really amazing, and I was impressed that someone in our town this close does that much work with social and mental health that probably no one knows about. So just a shout out to them. And also I was on the library lawn with another thing this weekend, and I was so pleased to watch a jillion small children walking by with an armful or a bag full or a stroller full of books. Yes. It was wonderful to see how the library made it books accessible to so many small children to have at home. So that was cool. And I believe that the girls softball team here at the high school was in playoffs at some.
Scott?
They lost over the weekend.
Yeah, they lost in the quarterfinals.
It was the quarterfinals, yeah.
Concord.
Nice.
So good for them to get into
Yeah,
the finals.
absolutely.
They always are a good team.
Yep.
Right. Thank you, Jenny. Is there any other accommodations, good news? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Is there any public comment for tonight? Okay, I will close public comment, and we need to approve the May 16th school board meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at them? Anybody see anything?
I'll move to approve the May 16th minutes.
All right, Ellen made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Shane. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are unanimous. So I think we're having technical difficulties.
I'm going to be Stephen's advancer, and Stephen's going to sit in front of the microphone.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a couple of presentations tonight. The first one is our IT director, Stephen Bourget, who's going to give us an update on some data stuff as soon as they get everything figured out. All right, welcome.
So every year, as required by what was House Bill 1612, RSA 189:66, I need to give the board a brief overview of where we stand in terms of data security and our data privacy and our data governance plans. Brian, can you advance it, please? So to frame this, everyone should have a copy of the presentation.
Yes, in our packet.
To frame this, I'm going to start off with where we are nationally in education in 2021, and then I'll talk about how things are locally in Goffstown and New Boston school districts. So in the grand scheme of things, in terms of cybersecurity in education in 2021, nationally there were 1,241 cybersecurity incidents and 282 confirmed data breaches in the education sector, which means public education, private education, and higher ed. So that's a lot of incidents in 1 year. A couple of key terms for the audience and those viewing at home. An incident is defined as a security event that compromises the integrity, confidentiality, or availability of a system. A data breach is an incident that results in confirmed disclosure of personal information, of data. So when a breach happens, data is released to a third party. An incident happens, they get in, but they may not get data. Oh, there it goes. In education, 80% of the
things leading up to our data breaches were either system intrusion, meaning that someone basically hacked in and got data, basic web attacks.
I think your projector might need to be added to the next budget cycle.
No, I think it's my laptop that's misbehaving.
You ready for the next slide?
Not yet. Basic web attacks, which basically mean they attack the website or web server, compromise it, get in, do their thing, and get out with the data. Or miscellaneous errors, something's misconfigured, or most commonly, the wrong information was sent to the wrong person. All right, if you want to advance it. For those of you who like pictures, the graphs are from the 2022 Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, which came out last week. So you can see how education nationally is doing in comparison to other industries, like hospitality, commerce, industry, arts and entertainment, and so on. So you could see on the graph that there are some areas that education has had issues with. The top 3 nationally were intrusion, miscellaneous errors, and web application attacks. So now let's talk about Goffstown and New Boston school districts. Over the last year, the good news is we've had no data breaches. We did have one security incident, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we did have a couple of user accounts that were identified in data breaches. What I mean by identified in data breaches, an SAU19.org or SAU19.net account was registered with one of the sites somewhere else that the district does not use. They had a data breach, so they showed up in our report. There were 2 individual accounts. One was in a Tree Spring data breach that happened sometime in last summer, and one in the MMG Fusion data breach, which happened last fall. Neither district uses either service. We've had multiple cases in the past where a game website might be compromised, and there'll be 3 or 4 students who registered their school account in there to keep their high scores, which then, of course, it shows up in our data breach numbers. In addition to having 2 accounts show up in those data breaches, and our standard practice for anyone who has an account that shows up in a data breach is we notify them, we make them change all their passwords. So in addition to those 2, we have had a couple of accounts that were identified as compromised over the last 12 months. They were all students this year. We had one that was a leaked password, and we had 5 other accounts that were compromised. I'll give you an example of what that means. I had a case within the last month where a student was doing something that was impossible. They were logging in through 3 different countries in a period of 2 minutes. Countries that would have taken 2 to 3 hours to fly in between. That student was in attendance at school that day. So being in Goffstown, also being somewhere in South America, and somewhere in Asia. Not really possible. So obviously, that account was compromised. We see a lot of them where student passwords get compromised and their email accounts start sending out hundreds of thousands of spam emails. Again, our standard practice is to notify and then have them change their passwords. As you can see, we had 6 of those this school year. My one incident was at Goffstown High School over the last week, where the student body has somehow gotten the Wi-Fi password. And we're in the process of isolating and containing those devices. And for the time being, we have isolated off the network over 300 student devices. No data was compromised. They just got access to the secure Wi-Fi. What that does is if a device has viruses, malware, or other bad things, it's now inside the network and poses a bigger risk of spreading. Any questions so far before I move on to, Brian, can you back up one slide? Okay. As the projector keeps cutting in and out with my laptop. So the next piece we're going to talk about are the security audits. So under House Bill 1612, we have to do, and on a regular basis, a network security audit and a penetration test. So we had a network security audit, or what's called a security landscape optimization review done last fall. It was done in November. They did a 2-hour plus interview with the tech staff to identify process and procedure and systems that we had in place to identify risk. You can see on the graph, they did find some areas of risk. They evaluated, I think it was 28 areas. We had 7 areas that fell into the high or very high risk category. All right, Brian, if you can advance it one slide, we'll talk about the specifics. So we've been working since fall to mitigate and address those 7 areas of high or very high risk. There's a couple of them that are built into the budget for next year. There are some that are going to have to be built into the budget because many of these items are, I'm going to say, not inexpensive to resolve and not going to be quick to resolve. The 7 areas that were identified as either high or very high risk are listed on the slide, and we'll talk about them briefly. So just a high-level overview of what they are. The first one was centralized patch management. This is basically the ability for us to make sure that all of our devices, all 3,000 devices, are getting security updates on a regular manner in a timely fashion. We found that we're not quite there. There are a lot of devices that are roaming that are not getting updates in a timely fashion. Right now, my staff are pushing them out manually. The next one was centralized log management and analysis, basically keeping records of what happens. We are keeping records of everything, but it's like trying to find the right passage in a set of encyclopedias. You kind of have to go looking for what you want. There's no catalog or index that tells you exactly everything you need. I guess a better example would be a year's worth of newspapers trying to find a specific quote. You'll have to dig through until you find what you're looking for. That's kind of where we are at the moment. So whenever we do an investigation, it just involves a period of digging through to find the information you're looking for, asking each network device to look at its records one at a time to figure out where you're going. Next one on the list was network access control, basically restricting who can access what network and requiring them to log in, which would have prevented these students from getting the Wi-Fi password. This one to address is listed in CIP because in order to implement, we have to replace portions of our wireless infrastructure and portions of our network infrastructure. And it is slotted out in the next couple of years. It is almost a $300,000 project. Next one, cloud access security broker. This is enforcing security policies when people are remote. We currently do not have a mechanism in place to do that, hence it was identified. We had some data security and compliance audits that had not been done at that point. This was our first one, so obviously it was identified as an area of need. Since then, we have had a penetration test, and it is also built into next year's budget that was passed by the taxpayers. So that one will be mitigated next year. The last 2 on the list, controlling data sharing in online tools such as Office and Google. That is also one that was built into the budget to be addressed next year. Matter of setting up online tools to manage sharing of personal information. It requires an Office 365 subscription, which we are getting as part of our laptop lease. And the last area of risk that was identified was mobile security software. The best way to think of it is like antivirus software for your phone or your iPad, which we currently don't have in place. We cover our desktop and laptop computers, but we don't cover the mobile devices. So those are the areas that they identified as risk. Any questions on that piece so far?
To keep it at a high level so that people can follow along, for the centralized patch management, I know that we're pushing the patches out. Now, is it that the systems aren't updating or the systems aren't updating and able to connect to the network?
The issue is, in order to do it, my staff has to manually download for each OS, set it up, and push it out. And unfortunately, with most of my management software, it takes a full lease cycle from when we buy the software to when it gets fully deployed. because I still have staff that we are chasing to get their laptop updated, so we can even push the updates to them.
Okay. So they're able to connect to the network
Oh, they
without
can-
the updates?
They
Versus
can,
removing them from the network if they don't update?
right now I have some staff who are off the network because of our wireless change, and I'm waiting for them to bring their laptop in, so that way we can update them so they can get on the network. But it's kind of a mix there. The other piece is there's no good automated method for an update to go through and, oh, this new version of Microsoft Word that came out that's security patched, have it download and push it automatically. Instead, someone has to go look and see, is there a new version? Yes, okay, I need to download it. Now I have to queue it up. Now I have to push it out to the devices. So it's that timeliness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. Anyone else? All right,
All right.
go ahead.
So the next item we're going to touch on is our phishing assessment. So everyone got lots of phishing emails. Some of them were planned. So we went through the Department of Homeland Security and had a phishing assessment done of both districts, Goffstown and New Boston. And as you may remember at the board retreat, I was asked to include the school board in that group. That phishing assessment is wrapping up over the next couple of weeks. The data I have on the slide and the data I've shared with you is from the halfway point. So this is from last month's portion of the test, the April-May test. The May-June portion of the test, I'll be getting the full results, I expect, in about 2 weeks. But you can see that they sent out 3 phishing emails to pretty much all of our staff. I had 606 staff who were part of the assessment. It was every employee in both districts as of April 1st. At the halfway point when this report was generated, which was the beginning of May, they had 304 people had been part of that first half of the test, with 302 that were pending. And if you look at the last piece on emails clicked on, there were 19 people who clicked on links that they shouldn't have clicked on. Which, in the grand scheme of things, is not too bad. We'll have a full report at the end of the month, which will tell us how many people per building and give us a little bit more of a breakdown. It will not tell us who, it'll just give us some statistics by school. It'll also break out the SAU office, and it will break out the school board separately. They won't give me groupings of anything smaller than 7 to protect the.
Go ahead, Shane.
Is there a mechanism within our email system that allows the user to identify and
Mark as spam? Yes. There's an option to identify as spam, report as spam. Some people did report them as spam. Most people just ignored them like they should have.
Okay. Thank you.
We did make sure that we kept the student body out of the test.
Smart.
All right, so the next test that we had done from Homeland Security, and this one is ongoing, I only have a little bit of information because I don't get the full report until my meeting with them on Wednesday, is our remote penetration test. So basically, Homeland Security and their team that we're working with is trying to hack into our systems externally from wherever they are located. So they tried to get access to the internet Comcast connection at every school. They tried getting in through the high-speed internet connection at the high school that serves everything. They tried accessing all of our public-facing servers and all of our public-facing systems. Think PowerSchool, think Moodle, think our conferencing system, our phone system. Anything that was public-facing was fair game. At this point, we're only aware of them getting into one system due to a software bug, which they reported to us. We were able to patch the system and mitigate it within a couple of hours of it being reported. But we'll get the full breakdown at the end of the month. Or actually, I'll have the preliminary report on Wednesday, and I get the full report 10 days later. Any questions on any of the security tests? All right, the last thing I have to cover is the data governance plan and the changes to the data governance plan as we review and update them annually. because RSA 189-66 requires us to present changes and updates to the board on an annual basis. The data governance plan had minimal changes and updates done to it this year. There were 2 areas that had some revision, both of which were in appendices. The first one revolved around technology access for vendors and contractors. So I've got the changes up on the screen. Last year's revision of the data governance plan, it was contractors and vendors had no access to anything. The problem is, as Scott and Brian have shared, finding staff for employees sometimes can be hard. And we had to outsource some positions over the last year. Well, if you outsource a teacher or a service provider, they still need access to do their job in the building. So we've modified the data governance plan to reflect that. Because before it said that they didn't get email, they didn't get access to anything. So this policy's been revised to say that they will be provided with a login, they will be provided with Office 365 and Google Access, and they will only be provided to systems that provide personal information that are required to complete their assigned duties. We've had a lot of going back and forth with vendors about bringing a device. Do we provide a device? Based on the recommendation I got from the Student Data Privacy Consortium's attorney, which we pay to be a member of in the state of New Hampshire, they've provided us with some documentation that a vendor can provide showing that they meet the state minimum security standards, which is enough to comply with the law. So we will have the option for a vendor to use their own device if they can provide proof of compliance, or we will provide a device. We had found, and we do have vendors right now, that we've had to provide devices to in order for them to complete their assigned duties. Exceptions get made with approval of the superintendent. So that was the first round of changes. The next round of changes, Brian, if you can advance one more slide.
One more?
Oh, nope, you're already on it. I missed it. Is the volunteers, student teachers and interns. So our previous policy said that they got no access. But it's very hard to be a student teacher to work with Google Docs with the kids if you don't have a Google account. So we're going to be giving volunteers, interns, and student teachers the same amount of access we give our substitute teachers, which is they'll get a login and they will have access to Office 365 and to Google applications. They will not be eligible to have a district-assigned device. They will not be eligible to access any system containing personal identifiable information. The rest of the changes in data governance are mostly cosmetic. The board had approved a few policies, which meant that the links on the websites had changed, which means that they were now broken. So I went through and I updated some web links. And we finished updating Appendix J, which is the roles and permissions in different systems. The roles in PowerSchool SIS were updated in the document to reflect what had changed. References to Learning Management System Schoology were added. Moodle was removed. Food service system was updated to reflect Titan as opposed to Meal Magic. Mostly small changes related to the inventory. I've already gone through and posted the complete data governance plan on the website. But as a high level, that's basically all that has changed with it. The other pieces required by RSA 189-66 is our software inventory and vetting of applications. We have continued the long process of vetting applications. We have just finished going through our iPad application list, which had over 600 apps on it that we started vetting before COVID hit, and then it kind of got put on the back burner. As we have worked through our iPad apps, we had found that about 20 to 25% of the apps did not meet the state standards. A lot of them related to targeted advertising, which unfortunately is not permitted under state statute. So we've gone through and we're going to be retiring a large portion of those apps, many of which are the free ones. There were a few paid apps, 99-cent app or $1.99, nothing significant that we're going to be retiring at the end of the year, and we may be replacing with apps that meet those requirements. But we're in the process of phasing those that don't meet the state minimum standards out. As for websites and other tools, Brian, can you go back? Thank you. We are still pursuing data privacy agreements with all of the online tools. We currently have over 125 privacy agreements in place for online digital assets that can be used in classes with student or staff logins. Not all vendors say, yes, we'll happily sign your agreement. There were some who said no. We currently have 12 vendors who have chosen no, that they will not assign the agreements, which means those products are not able to be used in either district. We have 16 that are still in process. Now, in process, sometimes they take weeks, sometimes they can take months, as we learned with trying to get one signed with the bus company, and sometimes they can take years, because it depends on how far back and forth we go between the two legal teams, the one at the consortium and the one at the company. But we do have a bunch that are ongoing. We also have 23 that have been identified as not collecting any information under the state statute that have been cleared. So we have a lot of tools that have been cleared. There's still some work to be done. They are still working on getting things reviewed and vetted. Anytime an application is vetted, they have to review and go through the entire data privacy process every 3 years. So the agreement is only good for 3 years. Yes?
Do teachers and staff have a list of approved?
It's on the website.
Okay, perfect.
As required by statute.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, last one is, again, related to House Bill 1612, is the data security compliance. So when House Bill 1612 passed in, I want to say it was 2019, SAU 19 adopted 63 security standards based on the NIST SP 800-171 federal guidelines, which is protecting controlled, unclassified information in non-federal systems and organizations. The Department of Ed adopted 41 of the standards from that federal document, and they are required as minimum standards for schools. The district adopted an additional 22 standards from that as part of our security plan. So on the bottom is the basic breakdown of the implementation, and I do apologize. I messed up on my adding on your copies. They are fixed on the slide up on the board. So if the numbers in parentheses are correct on your copies, but the total numbers were off by 1 because I messed up when I was totaling. So things that are fully implemented, of the 63 standards, 12 are fully implemented at 100%. 9 are the minimum standards, 3 are our district additional standards. There are 25 that are mostly implemented, think in the 75 plus percentile. 20 are New Hampshire minimum, 5 are SAU adopted standards. For partially implemented, think under 50% percentile. We have 21 that are currently in that state, and there are 5 that are in the not implemented category. Most of those are related to audits, which are in the budget for next year. And I think that's pretty much everything. Any specific questions?
Go ahead, Dan.
I just want to let you all know, and for the minutes, that the Technology Committee of this board met last Friday, and I was able to spend 2 hours with Mr. Bourget, and we went through this in quite more detail, which was very helpful because I didn't have to ask any questions tonight. But others did, which thank you very much for the presentation, Steve.
Yes, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I'd like to thank
Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Steve and his team. I can't imagine,
Yeah.
just listening to him.
Yes, I know.
It's mine.
A lot of work. Go ahead,
But,
Jared.
Thank you to you and your team.
Thank you for putting this out. I guess it's a question back to the superintendent. For the one student that we identified as a security breach for the passwords, what discipline policy do we follow for those types of situations? Is it just a regular discipline policy?
It is. So we've had, actually, we were talking about this.
It's in policy JICL-R, specifies a lot of it.
And we had talked about, Stephen, 2 in the last 10 years that we could
others.
recall of kind of similar students engaged in some kind of malice towards our technology. So I think this is this the third one or is this the second one?
This is the third one that I've been here
Yeah, so
for.
it is pretty low frequency. But yeah, those kids are held accountable. There is discipline. I can speak to the two in the past. Those students lost the ability to use any technology at school. So they couldn't use school devices, they couldn't use personal devices, they couldn't have cell phones, they couldn't be on our network, they couldn't have any technology in the building. As well as other, if there were suspensions or some of those kinds of things. But that's kind of what a natural consequence for a technology violation would be. But it's pretty infrequent, and at this point, Mr. Bourget shared that there were 300 students that are no longer allowed on the network. That's because that's how many students had accessed the network illegally. We had 300.
Would it be more appropriate to say that number of students or the number of devices?
That's the number of devices.
Good clarifier, devices.
Yes, there were 300 devices that were not district-owned that were on the secure district Wi-Fi. Those 300 devices have been blocked from all Wi-Fi in the building as we work to mitigate the issue. And they will probably continue to be blocked through the end of the school year because we have a lot of devices that we are still changing wireless keys.
Oh, they
on.
may very well be blocked next year as well. So we haven't kind of gotten quite that far yet, but from my perspective, you were on a network you weren't supposed to be on, so you lost access to all network privileges.
So if anybody would ask, well, could they have gotten on by accident? The answer is no.
No, that
did it on
that
purpose.
password, that network is password protected with a
Right.
30-character long password. The fact that you had to type that thing in meant that, or access it, or have someone else put that in for you, meant it was a deliberate act.
Absolutely. Shane, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, my only question with the loss of access to the network is, I know with remote learning and all that, a lot of teachers did a lot of electronic kind of teaching, and I think that's a lot of that has transitioned now we're back in school as well.
Sure.
With the loss of network, would that impact those students' abilities to achieve academically?
Are you
It may.
Are you
It may,
referring to
and
the?
that will be an important conversation for those students to come have with administration as to why their name was on the list. So,
You're referring to the 30, are you referring to the 300 devices that are blocked?
Yeah.
We're blocking the devices, so the child's cell phone can no longer connect to the public Wi-Fi in the building.
but their account has not
But they
been
can,
disabled.
they can sit down at a library iMac and log in, they can
Yeah.
sit down on a mobile cart and log in. That functionality is there, but their ability to access Snapchat during class will be greatly impaired for the rest of the school year.
Right, I only ask because I always worry about there being a consequence and then the consequence affecting the academic performance.
Yeah,
So-
I think at this point, it won't impact anyone in Schoology, but if you had a device that wasn't supposed to be on the network, that device will still be restricted.
And that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments for Stephen? All right.
And the board is aware that we increased, we had 2 positions that we added through ESSER funds, and then we had those 2 positions carry over into next year's budget. So Mr. Bourget's team has gotten a little bigger, but still really pretty small compared to how many students and how many devices they're managing. And Stephen does it all with a perpetual smile and a positive attitude, and I don't know how he remembers everything he does, but he does, and we're grateful for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stephen. This was a great presentation.
Thank you.
All
And
right.
please go home, Stephen.
Yes, definitely go home. All right, so the next presentation that we have tonight is our principals are here to report out how things have been going for the last year. So I don't know who wants to go first. We want to start with
I think we'll
elementary.
start off,
With Glen
our
Lake?
leadoff batter, I think, is Mrs. Stoyle. So
right.
we'll welcome Mrs. Stoyle up, and then we'll have the
Go all the way
elementary
up. Yep.
administrators, and then we'll move on to Mr. Hamel, and then we'll close out with Mr. Farley.
Sounds good.
So if I could provide, just before Mrs. Stoyle starts, this is what you're about to see is the presentation that is typically the last CNE meeting of the year. And for a variety of purposes, we thought that it would be a good idea to bring that presentation to the full board. So I think they're going to try to be a little quicker than they might be at CNE, but we'll leave time for questions if board members have questions. And with that, welcome Mrs. Stoyle. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm Kathy Stoyle. I'm the principal of Glen Lake School. Glen Lake is our preschool and kindergarten building in Goffstown. Our kindergarten is fully public half-day sessions. Our preschool is a program where we are able to service the needs of students who have been identified with special needs, and they're typically developing peers who pay tuition to attend our preschool. So it's not a public preschool per se, but that program is also housed at Glen Lake. So a lot of what happens at these LEAP goal presentations is a bit repetitive, because a lot of our LEAP goals in the different schools are very similar, and a lot of the curriculum we use is the same, so which is a good thing. So I'm going to start off. You've gotten my, I believe you have the handout from my presentation, so I'm going to go through it and just kind of hit the highlights. If you have questions, please feel free to stop me and ask me, but much like other buildings, our goal focuses on improving instruction in kindergarten curricula, so that we're increasing student achievement across that curricula. And like other schools, we use the Wonders program in literacy, Everyday Math 4. We implemented IXL this year. Mystery Science is a multimedia and hands-on science and STEM curriculum tool that we use. Second Step we use to address social emotional skills. And then in our building, you'll hear other buildings that might use PBIS or something similar for behavior and teaching specific behavior skills, so that children can be successful in a wide variety of settings throughout the school building and the school day. We have something that's been designed especially for early childhood, and this is a state-adopted social emotional curriculum, and it's PBIS, but written for an early childhood population, and it's called the Pyramid Model. So that's what we have at Glen Lake. And we also cover social studies, and that's hooked in with our other curriculum areas, covering citizenship and holidays, and including patriotic holidays and the Pledge of Allegiance. And like all schools, we are required to cover the Constitution, and we do that at a developmentally appropriate level by discussing our 3 school rules and agreeing on those rules at the beginning of the year. Be safe, be kind, and take care of our things. So you will see that displayed in our hallway. So our instructional model, to accomplish these goals, we have some core instructional blocks for literacy and math that are protected from pullouts, so that we aren't giving intervention services to a child at the time when they would be getting the core instruction in those subjects. We want to make sure they're present for that core instruction in the classroom, and then in addition to that, they're getting developmentally appropriate 20-minute sessions for their intervention sessions outside of that core instruction time. We have a literacy block of 60 minutes that's broken up throughout the day and in different locations in the classroom and different types of activities, but when you add it up, it adds up to be about 60, sometimes even 90 minutes a day. We support our English language learners using a collaborative approach between the teacher of English for speakers of other languages and the classroom teacher. And then related to and enriching the curriculum, we have special events and assemblies, which we've been delighted to be able to bring back. And that's my little piece of good news for the night. And one of the pieces of good news is that we've been able to bring back some great performances over the last few weeks, and had some wonderful outside events at Glen Lake. And it really did bring a lot of joy back to our building. So well received by all. That's great. This year, we did, as we're required to by law, our annual screening for risk factors for dyslexia. And then we implemented multi-tiered system of supports and special education interventions to address needs that arose through that screening or through any other assessment process. We work to improve the use of outdoor space for educational use. That's been an ongoing goal at Glen Lake. And we implemented IXL. And to talk a little bit about our data for this year that we're wrapping up now. I just got an update this afternoon, actually, from what's in your handout. I used April data in that, and that's our first kind of glimpse when we're looking at placing kids in first grade classes. We try to do balanced classes, so we look at that point about where kids are achieving. We've gotten some more up-to-date data from then, so I'm happy to report we've increased a little bit. 78% are leaving kindergarten at or above grade level in literacy, which is about the same level as pre-pandemic. 77% at or above grade level in math. That was about 80% pre-pandemic. And then I will say that I looked at every child who was not in that 78% in literacy, and 97% of those students are receiving support either through an IEP or our multi-tiered system of supports. So some trends I see in that data, I will say that those numbers aren't in my comfort zone. They're not in any of our comfort zone, I would say, at Glen Lake. We'd like to see those come up again to where they were before. We were implementing a new reading program that year before the pandemic, so we would like to see that be increasing by now. So some trends I see in looking at that data is that we've needed to spend a lot more time and a lot greater focus on social emotional skills this year. We're still seeing some impact from COVID on attendance and some of the instructional format that just kind of rolls with that as well. And we're also seeing a much higher need than we were in the past for intervention support. And so that's meant that we're getting all of those kids into sessions, but we aren't necessarily able to do as many sessions as we would like because we're just spread a little thin in that way. So we're working to meet those needs. The fact that we were closing the gap even since the second half of April makes me feel good, but we want to continue to see those numbers improve. So next year we look forward to working with Dr. Chisholm to analyze the data more deeply and look for ways to improve instruction. We'll be implementing Schoology. We'll have an update to our second step curriculum coming on board, a new teacher induction program that we'll be working with, and we'll see the return of more assemblies and the return of Family Literacy Night and Family STEM Nights, which are traditionally attended by somewhere between 250 and 350 people when we put those on, and those include a sensory-friendly room for our students who aren't quite able to participate in all the noise and chaos that 250 to 350 people bring. So we're looking forward to bringing those back, and then the last thing I wanted to mention that we hope to return is our Positive Solution for Families series, which is a class series that we have presented pre-COVID for about 4 years in conjunction with Project Launch. One of our teachers was trained in this program, and it is a 6-week series working parents through the challenges of addressing behavior in challenging behavior in 2 to 6 year olds, and it's been really well received by parents who look forward to being able to get a spot. We keep our groups small, about 8 families usually, so that we can make really good use of it, but we haven't been able to do that for a couple of years, so we're looking forward to bringing that back too, and feel that it's really necessary that we do. So in a nutshell, and I'm talking really fast, I think, but that gives you the highlights. Do you have questions for me?
Anybody? Go ahead, Ellen.
A couple. The students who are below grade level, we don't keep them in kindergarten for another year? We let them go to first grade and be below level?
Yes, we're required by state law that because we are a half-day kindergarten program, any child who has turned 6 in time is required to be given a full-day program. So
They have
so
to
they
go to
move on
first grade,
first
even though
grade
they're
by
below
there's an
grade level.
They
RSA.
have to be in a full-day program. So the difference is if Glen Lake was a full-day kindergarten, then that would potentially allow for retention, which I would say in general is not something we support. We would rather keep kids with their age-appropriate peers and provide a lot of support and interventions for those students, as opposed to keeping them back. They're in a 2.5-hour program and their age-typical peers are in a 6-hour day. You're not going to catch up by going to school less.
And I'd also like to say that these children who are approaching grade level aren't necessarily a year behind. They're not quite at where we'd like them to be at the end of kindergarten, but they're way beyond where we would have seen them at the beginning of kindergarten. So I'm not sure that rehashing the same thing again would really serve their needs. But what we've been able to do is put some supports around them, and we've been able to work with Bartlett and Maple Ave to let them know that these kids are coming and make sure that those needs are identified and they're ready to be addressed when they get there.
That's good to hear.
Did you have another
Just
question?
one
Go
other
ahead.
one. I'm really glad to see that the trauma-informed early childhood training is continuing. When a staff member observes there's something that's happened here, what does the school district do?
If there's a child dealing with trauma, so I will say that trauma is a pretty big factor for a lot of our students.
Yep.
And we deal with all children on the assumption that there's trauma. That means that you're not taking behaviors personally, you're looking at behavior as communication, and you're working with them to build up the skills they need in order to behave appropriately, be able to regulate their emotions, and be able to and to really just, we want to recognize that what they're reacting to might not be what's in front of them, but that we've triggered something somehow.
Do we as a district involve the family? Because the trauma isn't just the child. It's come from where they live or whatever. Do we involve them as a district?
I think it's more that the families sometimes involve us. And if we felt that there was something that, that we had identified that something had happened, that we would certainly include a family in that. But I think sometimes we're not sure. We're not sure what's going on with a child, and sometimes a family isn't sure either, and they're still trying to hone in on what are the causes of what they're seeing. Are they medical? Are they more a learning? Is it a learning difficulty, or is it trauma or something else? But no matter what it is in there, using a trauma-informed approach helps us deal more successfully with those students in any of those cases. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Go ahead, Shane.
Thank you. So my question is, our ideal goal would be to have all students at or above grade level. But your realistic goal, what would that be? And do you feel that you have the resources in both staff and programming to kind of close that gap and reach that goal?
So I would like to see us, I'm going to say this out loud, and I'd really like to see us around like 94% would really be my happy place. And I feel like we can get there. I feel like we've done it before, but there are a number of factors right now that are all in the soup that are that we're working with, and I think it's making sure that we have the right staffing available and the right programming. We're looking at all of it, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm really excited. We've worked with Dr. Chisholm in the past on different literacy programs along the way, and we've always wanted to work with her more at our level, so we really feel like this is going to be a great opportunity, because I will tell you, I had 2 teachers like in my office after school today running down to say, hey, we got our, our latest data in, go and look at it. It's a few points better, but it's still not, it's not where they want to see it either. And I think they're all looking for, like, what is it? Is it just a kind of a COVID hangover, or is it, like this? And I think there is an element of that in there, but I think there's a lot of other things too, and we want to make sure that our instruction is meeting our kids' needs, and so, yeah, we're going to keep investigating to get there, but I do think we can.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot.
Yep.
But I do want to make sure that you guys have support and everything you
I
need in
appreciate
order
that.
to kind of, bridge that gap.
Yep, and I think we talk, and, we talk in our, in principals meetings, we talk, we've had these, theoretical and boots on the ground conversations about what are the things we're doing and what can we tweak and what's working well and what do we need to look at again. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shane. I saw Dan's hand first, Ellen. Go ahead, Dan.
So I'm looking at the statistic that you provided us for 2019 compared to 2022. I'd be very curious to get the numbers for 2020, which were the 3 months of COVID, and then for 2021, which was pretty much the entire year. I mean, where were they? Did they go up? Did they go down?
I can go back and get you those, and the reason I chose those years to compare is because the last 2 years were such flukes.
It does make sense,
yeah.
but I would love to see the trend.
Yep, I can get you those numbers, and
Okay.
as I recall, we were kind of in the same ballpark, I want to say, give or take. There were some things that surprised us about the numbers we had last year. There were other, and I remember looking at, like, specifically pulling out some of the remote student data and that looking better than I would have expected, but also realizing that we had a group of parents who had elected that remote option for their students, and then we're watching while we had Mr. Tisbert teach reading, and learning about how kids learn to read and how to support their child in reading, and which says to me that bringing parents in as much as we can, and I know parents are pulled in a million different directions, but the more information we can give them and the more we can kind of help them help their child, the better off we'll be.
That's kind of like where I was going to find out how the students were able to capture what they did capture while they weren't in person, because they were in person, but it wasn't in a group setting. It was in an individualized setting. I want to see how that.
And it varied wildly. For some, it worked not at all. For a lot, it worked not at all. But for some, they were, like, really successful, and we want to learn from that as well.
Thank you, Dan. Go ahead, Ellen.
Loretta had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Loretta, go ahead.
And this is just a quick follow-up to Shane's question. So I think it was about this time last year that we're talking about enrollments at Glen Lake, and that this is really a moving target, but we are concerned about the numbers coming in. Do you have a sense of where we are right now in projection for this coming fall?
Right now, we're up on track to be about the same, and we've kind of gone up and down. And I will say that the numbers have, while they've stayed kind of steady overall, we've had a lot more coming and going this year than we have in years past. But we're at, I want to say, 144 in kindergarten right now. Where we've seen increases are definitely in our incoming preschool special ed population. That grew more than we realized, and the severity of needs in that group was a lot more. And I think we're playing some catch up from COVID there, where there were families that either didn't get early intervention services or stopped early intervention services because they were on Zoom and they were finding that they weren't working for them. Or they didn't get the services because they didn't realize they didn't have other children around to kind of catch on that, maybe there was something they needed to look at. So we've been kind of playing catch up, I think, a bit with that population, and have had a lot. We will have a much larger group group of students moving into actually all of our 3s, 4s, and kindergarten to start the year next year. We'll be bigger in that special education population.
Ellen, did you have another,
Yeah,
hang on,
just-
did you have a question?
If I
Go
may,
ahead.
Yeah, just be aware, we've got 2 large developments coming into Goffstown. And they would tend, given that they're 1 and 2 bedrooms, to be little kids coming in. One is starting to be built very soon on Factory Street. The other one's on Bog. I know I'd be, as a board member, when those numbers coming in would be of great interest. We have the generic numbers that certain types of developments and construction can impact schools, but those numbers, can be quite impactful to us.
We'll watch that development
Yeah,
very closely.
Yeah, and I'm just one of 9, but any impediment, anything that's in the way of providing what these very young ones need to be what we call at grade level, I'd say knock those impediments over and get what you need.
The biggest one is time. So we need to always remember that Glen Lake is a 2.5-hour program. And they've had historically very good results. Mrs. Stoyle runs a wonderful school, but they have a very small, narrow of time, and these kids need more.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge we have is we don't have the space, we don't have the staffing, and the state doesn't give you the money to pay for it to create full-day kindergarten. So full-day kindergarten, you saw at your last meeting when you approved the CIP, we included full-day kindergarten, but I would say that remains, what could we do to help our young learners?
Yeah.
Full-day kindergarten.
Absolutely. Or, my thoughts have gone to double session for those who are in need. I don't even know if that's allowable in the state, but, because the time is really it, all the research.
And I fear, not that I want to give Mrs. Stoyle or her team any more reason to have kind of trepidation moving forward, but we've got a lot of kids now that are not in preschool. So you've got kids that can't get into preschool because there are huge waiting lists.
Yep.
We've heard from families that they can't get in for childcare. What was the one that, I think you told me one.
I
What
had
was
a-
that? I
yeah.
heard it and I was like, no, that can't be right.
I
What-
had a parent that was told that the wait lists at different places throughout town for childcare were until 2025.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
2025.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that means that there's a 2-year-old that isn't going to programming, who isn't learning those prerequisite skills, isn't observing age-appropriate peers to watch how do we do school, how do we do these things. So that kid, when that kid shows up as a 5-year-old, is going to likely be delayed in some of those aspects. So I think at Glen Lake, we're going to have challenges for years because of kids that are behind, kids that haven't been in programming. So we think about just families with new children who aren't around other families and don't get the benefit of watching how another dad parents their child, and some of those positive kind of role models for parents that we think about. These are some of the silent things that we've lost through the pandemic, and who pays the price? It's the kids.
Absolutely.
Whatever is needed, anything we can do.
Well, you're going to hear a presentation a little later tonight that I've got some staffing repurposes, and in that queue, Glen Lake receives an additional 0.5 special educators because they are in need of providing more support to kindergartners. And I would say, spoiler alert for next budget cycle, I probably am bringing that forward as a full-time. So what can we do? A little later on the agenda, we've got a couple of staffing things that will impact several buildings.
So I saw Jared's hand up. Ellen, are you all set? Okay, Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Superintendent, because you teed up the 2 questions that I have that are mutually exclusive. Starting with the first one, going off role models. If we have an increase in special needs students that are at the 3- and 4-year-old level, how does that impact our role model ratio we've really been trying to get under control.
Yep.
And so do we need additional role models coming in?
So I've tried to project for the population going in. I will say, I think we've still got a few role model spots available for next year, but we're much closer to having those filled than we were in the past, this past year. So I think we kind of fell off the radar when we weren't doing the role models during COVID. So we're looking better for those ratios next year. We've kept it open this year so that if somebody came in, that we could take them. And we'll continue to do that until we're full for next year. And I think it's so imperative for those kids to have those role models there to learn from. And it makes it a much better program, so.
The next question I have, within the presentation, we really didn't talk about the addition that's been out there. This is the first academic year since we've had the addition where we can say, okay, we hopefully no longer have kids in closets.
Right.
How has that affected the special needs, or should I just say the services that's occurring?
It's been really helpful, and I will say, we feel, you walk through that building, and that building feels full, because it is, so with those 4 extra classrooms, it's full. And we have some of those closets we have kept as learning spaces for adjoined to a classroom for a child who needs a quieter place with a door, that's still right there. And so we've been able to kind of make those still work for kids, but it's not that we're forced into using them for sessions all day long. They're more access as needed spaces. I think overall we've still got a lot of kids with a lot of needs, and sometimes it seems like a lot of them in one space. but I think we're able to meet those needs within the space that we have right now. So certainly nowhere near what we would need for a full day kindergarten, but we're doing okay with what we have right now. So, but it's a constant creative use of okay, how do we meet the needs of this child, how it's a little bit of Tetris.
And what's the thing that we always need to remember about Glen Lake is it's Tetris in a 4-dimensional way, in that she gets new 3-year-old students throughout the year. So just when you've got everything kind of figured out, you can have a whole series of new children who become eligible. Kathy, before they turn age 3, has to evaluate them. She has to have meetings. They have to write an IEP before they turn age 3. There are very specific rules, timelines. The number of unfunded mandates that we continue to see, whether it's the data governance plan, great. State, tell me to do anything you want. Give us the money to pay for it. So all of the hours, all of the time, it's just unbelievable how much time we have to spend complying with all of the laws, the rules, the regulations. But they have this rolling enrollment that new children come into the program throughout the year, which is unique. This is the only level that we see that. And on average, from the start of the school year until the end, Kathy has about a 30% change.
In preschool, I would say.
In preschool, so you figure at least a third of those kids didn't start the year with them.
Wow. Well, does anybody else have any more questions for Mrs. Stoyle before we move on to the next school?
I was going to do 4 minutes. How'd I do?
Not good. Not good.
We appreciate the effort.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mrs.
All right,
Stoyle.
Mrs. Gogan.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to
Bartlett.
Bartlett. Now, we should start to see there will be some thematic overlap. So I think Mrs. Gogan might be a little quicker than Mrs. Stoyle, and then I think we might see that Mrs. Pishka and Mrs. Johnson might be quicker still.
All right.
Great. Thank you for having me tonight. We talked about the 4 LEI LEAP goals that we had for Bartlett. One is to improve in the area of literacy, one is math, one is the positive behavior system in school, and the other one is to provide an on-site induction program for new staff. The highlights of literacy are that we added in some Haggerty, some training on Haggerty for the grade 1 and grade 2 teachers. It's research-based instruction and practice in phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and the alphabetic principle. We're planning a book study for our grade 1 and grade 2 teachers in the new science of reading. And what the focus is that we all know a lot about reading. There's some of it that is still valid and been proven by research, but there's also some additional information. So we've added in a phonics piece for students that they actually really like, 15 minutes a day in the grade 1, grade 2 classes. And we're seeing a big difference in that in their scores, because if you don't understand that, it's really hard to build upon your reading knowledge. We're also targeting those same skills in Title I groups and in the reading specialist groups. So some of the kids that need it are getting double or triple dosed. Dr. Chisholm coming in will help us with that as well. She had explained to me that her vision for elementary was to come in and work with teachers to help the students that are not able to access the Wonders curriculum that we have, but get them up to be able to access that curriculum. So that is going to be her niche. We provided Title I instruction in ELA for 58 students. Some of those same students I'll mention later are also in math too. IXL has been a really great tool for our students in grades 2, 3, and 4. Grade 1, they're really just getting to know that process and they are using it, but they'll be ready to really fly with that in second. By law, we conduct a dyslexia screening for students that have not attended the Goffstown schools before. We screened 17 students. 5 are just monitored, so they came in without any risk factors, and 12 we're doing progress monitoring and servicing. So like Kathy, we have a lot of students with high needs, but we're meeting those needs. MTSS is pretty beefed up at Bartlett. 25 students, or 12% of our students, receive MTSS services, and that's targeted quick interventions. It might be like we do a quick screener. What is it that they need? Is it speech? Is it OT? Is it ELA help or math help? And then we provide 6 weeks of support targeted for that group. Then we come back as a team, look at data. Is it working? Continue on the path. If it's not working, change the path a little bit. And we'll do 3 rounds of that before we decide if sometimes the kids are ready to move out of MTSS and other kids move in. Sometimes it ends up in a special ed referral. And often we've just learned more about the student, worked with the parent, and it's enough to get them flying. We put in the NEWA data, so I'll spend a little time with the NEWA data. It's fascinating trying to figure out, like you said, the difference between 2019-20 to this year. So overall, I think some of the highlights are in NEWA ELA first. Our low students, in grade 2, there were 9% of the students that were low. And then there was 18% in grade 3 and 13% in grade 4. So that doesn't look so bad, but I went back and compared it to trends from before. So in ELA, we are up 8% in the low scoring students from 2 years ago. And in grade 4, we're up 7% in the low performing. So let's see. And then if we look at I'm going to go to the math. It's interesting, same thing. So I'll look at the low, because that's really the people that we're targeting the most. 13% in grade 2, 20% in grade 3, and 12% in grade 4. And looking at the trends in math, we're up, the low scoring students are up 12%. So that's quite high. And then in grade 4, the low scoring percent, they're up 2%, so that's not so bad. And interestingly enough, I didn't notice till I was sitting here tonight that I used the graph that was online. Our high scores are not listed here. So I'm going to send a new updated slide with the high scores, because it looks even better when you add the highest column. The numbers are correct. We have been back in business with family storyteller nights and literacy nights. We had an all-school read, so we had a magician come in and do a whole school assembly. We've had Patty Pennick of the library come in and do presentations for us. We had our 100th celebration for in-school for our students and staff. And let me see, there was something else.
Field day?
Yeah, field day, Memorial Day program. So we've been, it's felt very normal the past, I'd say 2.5, 3 months, and even field trips. So we're getting there. And I can see the happiness with the students. I did want to touch upon Sandy Fife. So we had students that were out, as everyone did, for quarantine or for isolation during COVID. So Sandy Fife is the teacher that worked with those students remotely. We offer it to everybody that has a student that's quarantined or isolated. So this year, she worked with 23 first graders, 16 second graders, 21 third graders, and 23 fourth graders. The quotes were amazing. What we've found is that the teachers, there's three components to this online help at home. Like, it's Zoom, but with grade 2 students at a certain time for ELA and grade 2 students at a time for math, but she individualizes it for each student in the work that the teacher gives. The teachers felt like they were giving work that students could complete at home because they had support. Parents were incredibly thankful because they had somebody reaching out to their child and checking in on them, and the students themselves felt connected. Just recently we had a student that was with Sandy Fife that felt she was really struggling with being home, and we had a Memorial Day program, and then we had the high school drama club came, and we were able to stream it to that student, and that perked her back up and brought her back in the fold. So.
But if we just pause for a minute, 83 kids is about 40% of all Bartlett students who worked with Mrs. Fife because we had a remote teacher for kids that were out on quarantine.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I think we're the only school district that I know of that did that this year. So there's 40% of that school accessed her services that they otherwise would have been sitting home with no support.
And she emailed each teacher, each parent. She connected with our staff. She's amazing. She deserves kudos.
Gifted. She's a gifted teacher.
I didn't know how she was going to do it, but she did it. So,
What was the average length of time? A week? Is it 5 days?
It's usually 5 days
Yeah.
for most kids. Some kids it was 10,
Yeah.
and then some kids it was a little longer, depending on kind of their unique circumstances. But 5 to 10 days.
Yeah.
But at least those kids all had support.
Do we know if there was a crunch time that it was all in a particular time frame, or is it spread out evenly?
It was a whole lot in December, January, February,
Right.
started to subside in March.
Okay.
April was lower, and then started to tick back up at the beginning of May. So we've continued, as the board is aware, to have a fair amount of COVID cases. We have a lot of people that have been out, so she's been busy again, Mrs. Fife. You know, for a little while, she had a little bit of a lull, and the board will recall that's when we had her doing some investigation around our new math program. So we kept her busy, but I think it was really important that we had that support this year. It was imperfect because they weren't, sitting in the same room, but it was a good support for those kids.
very good support. And then we had the before and after school extra activities with the ESSER grants and also some SAU funding. So we had a total of 70 hours of students staying before or after school in things like chess, art enrichment, Pokemon, a social emotional group, and literacy and math. So the kids felt connected. Next year, we're going to develop a LEAP goal to advance in science, because we do science and we fit it in as we can, but I think we need more data around that. Develop a new LEAP goal for the teacher induction program and see how that works with retention and ability for those teachers to step right in and do the work that they're good at. Like Kathy mentioned, we have the updated, well, I don't know if Kathy, but Suzanne will mention, the updated second step program is coming. We had some sensory paths before COVID, and then we stripped all of the sensory paths off the floor and put arrows and dots and things, so we're going to have our sensory paths back on the wall and on the floors next year. In the main part of the first, second grade building, as well as downstairs, we used to just have it down where the SPED was, accessing it, but it's really for all students. We're training everyone in Schoology, which there's a lot of excitement about, especially at the elementary level. We would like to provide additional before and after school in-person tutoring. It has been hard to get Bartlett staff to want to stay and do extra. They mostly are staying with their students and they find what their students need. So I'd like to make that even more available to students. And then provide additional early intervention in literacy for our first grade by adding an interventionist. You probably remember you approved an interventionist position for this year. We were never able to find anyone, but we did hire Chantel Garrett is going to be switching to that. So this coming year, we'll have an additional interventionist position that will really help us focus on the first and second grade and flood those classrooms at reading group time and math group time. And then we're adding some after-school programs, which has been a lot of work at the high school level. So we're benefiting from that. We'll have like a gardening club, and we'll have a STEAM club, and possibly some other clubs coming up. Any questions?
New fence around the playground, keeping
yeah.
all the rubber mulch in.
Yes.
Kids have kind of reestablished new guidelines and expectations.
It's amazing. For some reason, the mulch was the problem, spreading out everywhere and getting into everything, the black mulch, and going down into the drainage and into the neighbor's yard. But they put up that fence, I think it was over April vacation, and for some reason it calmed the whole playground down because the kids aren't running from the playground into the equipment. It's the strangest thing. And they'll just stand at the wall and look out at other kids playing. And I bought some dollar store fairy garden things, and they've got this whole fairy garden section that the first graders play with, and the fourth grade comes to check on it every night. Somebody put up like little sticks and do not bother signs. It calmed the playground down a lot.
Nice.
So now we're working on gardening. We have some, we're going to be putting in a butterfly garden this week. It doesn't rain on Thursday or Friday. The kids did some planting. So I think there's a lot of school pride from the students and the staff and the families.
Nice. Jared, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I just want to make sure I understood. I know during the budget cycle, we brought an interventionalist.
Yes.
But did I hear correctly that wasn't filled until very recently, and we're going to have 2 for next year?
No, so it was originally going to be for next year, and then you helped us push it forward and made it available this school year, and we were never able to find anyone qualified that could take the position. So that interventionist position will start. It'll be filled in the fall.
And Mrs. Garrett is moving into that position.
Yes.
And she is just a master teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher.
She's already collaborating and
Very
taking
skilled.
on so much, yeah. That's going to really help us.
Yep. Go ahead, Shane.
To pick up on the interventionist,
Mhm.
it sounds like it's going to be like a push-in model, like they'll be going into the classroom instead of pulling out. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Some push in, some pull out, depending, but the goal at first, at the beginning of the year, the first 3 months is really pushing in. So that way we've got the Title I teachers, reading specialists, and the interventionist in there, working with those kids in reading and in math. And as we figure out what they need more, and we can target those skills specifically, we'll start pulling out more.
Great, thank you.
But kids aren't missing the core instruction.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yep.
And the more eyes on kids, the better. You know, if you have 4 teachers in the room, they notice so many more things than if it's just one teacher trying to do it when they're collaborating and talking about it together. It's amazing.
Couldn't agree more.
Agreed. Anybody have any other questions? Go ahead, Caroline.
Are your younger students receiving support from guidance when necessary or regularly?
Yes. So this year, we had a new school counselor, Mr. Corrette, who was amazing. And he went in and taught second step lessons in all of the classes. He also spent most of the first trimester in first grade, just teaching social skills and kindness and working with the classroom teachers on that. So next year, we're hoping that he still will, of course, do targeted interventions for classroom instruction when they're having problems with friends or things like that. But he will also have even more, hopefully more time for groups. So he does pull out students in all kinds of groups. Some are special ed groups, but most are just social emotional, friendship groups, you know, sharing, taking turns. I love it. A few days ago, Mr. K was leading out 4 kids out of his office, and they were so polite, holding the door, and I mean, they're 4 of our hardest kids, and I mean, it was a crazy group to start with, you know, but now it's like we were sending in paraprofessionals to work with him, and now they come out, they're kind and caring and real members of the community. So that's thanks to Mr. K.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I think we're good. Thank you so
Mrs.
much.
Logan.
Thank you.
Is Mrs. Johnson coming up? Mrs. Fishka? Both of you? One of you?
I'll take 2 minutes, she'll take 2 minutes. We'll try to be faster. I think we should get 8, because there are 2 of us.
Right.
Hi, I'm Susie Ann Pishka. I'm the principal at Maple Avenue Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Lisa Johnson. I'm the assistant principal at Maple Avenue.
So our local education improvement plan is similar to Bartlett's. You know,
focus is advancing student learning in the core content areas for sure, so I won't read through all of those. We do have also a school-wide positive behavior system in place, and continue to work on that, and that being our focus, especially this year, starting out the year, and our focus building relationships with students. We are your largest elementary school in Goffstown with almost 500 students, so having them all come back into our small footprint, we wanted to make sure they felt comfortable, happy, and safe. So literacy is, Kathy and Jerry both talked about, is a focus, early intervention especially. In addition to our 90 minutes for all grades daily in literacy, our first grade students received not only support from their classroom teacher, but an interventionist or a special ed teacher pushed in daily to provide additional support to students who we identified as reading near or below grade level. So in a 60-minute block, instead of having the students who are struggling reading work independent of the teacher for a longer period of time in a 20-20-20 model, so 20 minutes with their teacher and then 20 minutes in a managed independent center and then another 20 minutes in that and another center. We gave those students who are near and below 40 minutes with direct instruction with either both the special ed teacher and the classroom teacher, or an interventionist and the classroom teacher. So they had only 20 minutes of doing something that they managed on their own, but that it was meaningful that they left from when they left their group, to carry on. So that has been very successful, and we will continue that model next year. Our intent really was, we didn't know what we would be getting as far as what students are capable of doing, especially on their own. We've set a lot of goals with students across grade levels on sustaining longer periods of time doing work, so writing. A goal, increasing their time in writing, increasing their time in reading, really building up the ability to focus for longer periods of time. And that was really a struggle at first. So that was across the board, but especially for our first grade students, we wanted them to be able to feel success right away. We do have a multi-tiered system of support, not only for academics, but behavior. So there is a process for that. There are members of those groups, teachers who sit and review forms that are filled out on students as needed. But what was really nice about first grade was we just assumed they would all need assistance, and so that's why we had those other professionals jump in all year for an hour every day in those classrooms. We're hoping that really pays off when we start to look at their assessment, like at the NWEA next year for second grade. I'd like to see that really pays off for us. I do have our fall NWEA literacy and math scores for you on there. This really, the purpose for having the students take this at the end of September was to see where they're at, where they're coming in. I would have liked to do a spring, but unfortunately for third and fourth, the state testing is lengthy and absorbs the entire month of April for us and a portion of May. But I would like to think of a way for us to, look at the growth at the end of the year. But we can certainly look at it fall to fall, so we'll do that as well. Anything else to add for literacy, Lisa?
I think the only thing I would say about the model in first grade that I thought was really helpful and that the feedback I've gotten from classroom teachers and from the interventionists is that real collaboration and being able to see what somebody else is doing, being able to put eyes on all the kids, and learning some skills from each other. And we've also seen, in terms of some of the special education referrals that have come down, we have a lot more data on those students. And the referrals that we're getting, particularly in that first grade, are the students who really do require that, the children that really do require the more specialized instruction. And there are a lot of more kids that are sort of moving, getting that extra boost, moving on, and not needing the extra support. So I think it's been really helpful doing that in first grade.
So in math and literacy, we utilize the IXL online program, practice program, that we, our first grade to fourth grade, use this in school. We did try in one of the grades to see if it was something that we could use as a homework option. I would say that it's been more beneficial to have in class and have short periods of time. So one of the, for instance, if you need a managed independent learning opportunity for a student, using IXL is a good example of using their time, independent and practicing some of the skills that they need to strengthen. In math, we did offer tutoring before and after school for struggling students in grades 1 through 4. Just as Jerry mentioned, a lot of the teachers worked with their own students, but we did have a few that took on groups of kids across the grade or across 2 grades. But we really focused on math for the tutoring portion. And I would say that what they focused on mainly was, the place value, fact fluency, kind of the things that we know that if children were able to move through the idea of adding or subtracting more quickly, then they could get to the problem itself. So we worked on really strengthening those areas specifically. Having such a large population, we had to pinpoint something that we really wanted to work on. We just aren't able to accommodate the number of students we have. And that's been sort of our theme with our events too. We talked a little bit about the Little Miss Dance and the Memorial Day program. When we're all together somewhere, there isn't enough room for us at our building. And it's amazing that we can be in there the way we are now, but it's because we're spread out. But the Memorial Day program we had on the playground, and it was still tight, right, Ellen?
Yeah, it was.
The Little Miss Dance, there were so many people who wanted to go, and we had to cut it off at 300. So we are outgrowing our building. Science, next generation. Science standards, mystery science online, those are focuses for us. We do have a science committee at school, and teachers really are, instead of having everyone work individually, because in a grade level of 7 teachers, you could have 1 or 2 people working to pull together resources and hands-on activities for students, and then offer it out to their teammates. So, we divide things and conquer. So we do focus on science as one of our LEAP goals. And then, as I mentioned, behavior, so multi-tiered systems of support for behavior. We have a student success program as part of that, and it's multi-tiered. So at the universal level, all teachers are trained and providing supports for all of their students on how do we teach students skills for learning and being ready to learn at the universal level. And then students, as they need more supports, might move into a tier 2 and have additional staff to support them, such as a guidance counselor or our student success program. We have a paraprofessional who works in that program, and that person is assigned to students for check-ins and for reviewing information with them on what will your day look like, or how did your day go. Anything else? else about student success?
But I think the paraprofessional should also help manage some of their behavior programs. Some of those kids do participate in the behavior programs, so they might have reward breaks or motor breaks, and so she helps organize those. And I think that, like you mentioned, that the universal supports has been really helpful because we do have a binder, so we have a support document for all classroom teachers, all staff, and we've been able to have opportunities, not as much this year, but in the past years and hopefully in the future, to really sit down and go through some of those and have people be able to share with each other. This is a strategy I use in my classroom, and everybody has their binder and they can add those resources to their binder. So I think that's been really helpful, as having that conversation and learning from each other.
And as a school, we've focused on school-wide themes to reinforce positive behavior with things such as recognition tickets and ribbons. So, we would identify as a behavior committee where are areas that we're having or children are struggling, such as when we shifted to the cafeteria, and then how do we best support that and then reinforce the positive behavior that we're seeing. So, that's it in a nutshell. As far as next year, as everyone's mentioned, Second Step is an online resource. We'll have Schoology training for our staff, teacher induction support. We do have 4 teachers retiring. 2 of them are classroom teachers. So I'm looking forward. We've hired, as you know, and I'm looking forward to continuing that support. It's very valuable for them to have time, especially at the elementary level, to work as groups or teams. Because again, if you're a second grade teacher, you have 5 other people who are doing very similar things. I mean, the way that teachers deliver instruction might look a little different, but the path is the same. So, it's smart to work together because you can accomplish more. So, that's how we get it done at Maple Avenue. Anything else? I don't think so.
Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Pishka. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. We will now shift to Mr. Hamill. Welcome.
Hi, I am Lyle Hamill. I'm the curriculum coordinator over at Mountain View Middle School, where we serve the grades 5 through 8 students from Goffstown and are joined by our New Boston students in grade 7 and 8. Our first LEAP goal to advance student learning, the first sub-goal is in the area of literacy. Our instructional model in grades 5 and 6 is we have 90-minute blocks of time in literacy. 30 minutes of that time is used for students with interventions and supports who come about through our MTSS model. We have supports from our reading specialist and Title I teacher who collaborate with their counterparts from Maple and Bartlett in order to facilitate the transition to the middle school and to provide continuity of support. So those meetings have taken place to help prepare for next year. We continue to use the district's handwriting instruction implementation guide, and the skills that the students have by the end of 6th grade are remarkable. They're able to write entire essays, take their spelling tests and everything all in cursive, which is fantastic. We're in year 1 of the full IXL implementation, which benefits our students in grades 5 and 6 in both literacy as well as mathematics. It is also available to some of our grade 7 and 8 students with special education needs who can have another layer of support in targeted instruction. We are also in the first year of using the typing.com keyboarding program, so students are able to learn, increase their fluency and familiarity with actually typing. And anecdotally, our teachers are saying that they're seeing increased fluency and facility in the students with using typing for anything, whether it's doing essays in class, taking state assessments, which will be a real boon with the onboarding of Schoology coming up for next year. In grades 7 and 8, we continue to develop the close reading skills in our students using performance tasks with multiple sources. We had the good fortune of being able to provide all of our professional staff members a training with Dr. Chisholm from Maple, as well as Kurt McDermott, Dr. Murchison, and Maureen Brown from the high school. Provided a 2-hour intensive close reading refresher course for all professional staff, regardless of discipline. Both general and special educators were able to participate in order to continue to build on that foundation throughout their time at Mountain View. In grade 7 and 8, the intervention period for our struggling readers and writers have a dedicated 55-minute period for literacy, the teacher of which works with the ELA teachers in order to build grade level skills in order to help get them on track by the time they're able to enter the high school. And also this year, our students are in the process of completing their ICT portfolios, information communication technology, where they're showcasing and curating a selection of research projects, presentations that they've done over their years in order to demonstrate ICT competency standards by the state before they enter the high school. We had our fall NEWA testing for literacy. Those results were part of the January 24th presentation, so I don't have them here again. We will be able to next year compare fall to fall growth as well as achievement, because we'll have consecutive years in the same time period, so we'll be able to have a really good sense of how our students are doing. Literacy support has been our homework den, which was so popular and well utilized by our students that we were able to add a third section of it in December due to student need. It has been phenomenal. Students who participated in the homework den were able to maintain all of their grades, increase them in the core subject areas. Over the summer, our literacy teachers will take an in-depth look at our current New Hampshire SAS testing scores for the session that's in process now, in order to identify instructional areas of strength and areas in need of growth. The Mtss Committee will review the first year of the new implementation, which we've started, streamlining the process, the referral process, and the delivery of interventions for students who need them. I've included some district-wide IXL global overview data that may be of interest. In the district, from grades 1K through grades 5 and 6, and then with the inclusion of certain 7th and 8th special education students, we've perfected or mastered 36,000 individual skills in all the grade levels combined. That is a result of earning a SMART score, which is the IXL algorithm for evaluation of 100. Below that, earning at least an 80 SMART score in this proficient range is an additional 42,000 students with 64,000 skills practiced this year through the middle of May. You can see the number of hours that district-wide our students have spent on the program, and successfully our students have answered 1.5 million questions as a district. On the third page, you can see the number of questions that students are answering per student per week by each building. You can see that even down in our Glen Lake School, our students are accessing and successfully answering questions that are targeted for their grade level. The adjacent graph shows the skill gains that have come about through IXL utilization. Mountain View's second sub-goal of the first LEAP goal is to advance student learning in the area of math. In grade 5, we use the Everyday Math 4th edition program in continuity with the elementary schools. We also have the same model as with literacy for the 30-minute intervention segment within a 90-minute larger block. In the instructional model, we're also focusing on the core instruction, teacher-directed, group work, and individual student practice with VAC fluency, including digital literacy skills. IXL is also used. And one of the main advantages of everyday math and IXL is that they'll be fully integratable with Schoology for next year. So students will have ease of access, signing in, and being able to utilize these programs. In grade 6, we switch over to the Big Ideas Mathematics core program at the universal level. Students also retain access to IXL throughout the grade. In grades 7 and 8, we do continue the Big Ideas program through grade level 7 and 8 math, as well as for the accelerated and algebra and geometry advanced math offerings for those students, all with Big Ideas. The instructional model in these grades is we have 55-minute periods with support time built in for that for our students to receive support as needed. Especially with mathematics has been our successful math tutoring program, which is another additional offering that we've been able to have. And you can see that it's been regularly utilized, especially in the higher grades with multiple sessions. And these students also were able to maintain and improve their overall academic performance in their grades. You can see the change from last year over this. We've doubled the number of students utilizing the homework den in math tutoring for literacy and mathematics support. As was mentioned before, Sandy Fife has been very exceptionally busy and more importantly helpful for our students who have been in quarantine for periods of time. Of the total 411 individual students who have been supported by her, that represents 48% of all our students. So very nearly half of our students have benefited from the supports of Ms. Sandy Fife. Going forward, we're going to similarly look at the New Hampshire SAS data in order to identify areas of strength and weakness and room to grow. And teachers are working to increase and collaborate and use the number of performance tasks that are implemented in the classroom, those authentic learning experiences where they can provide a tangible product at the end. This winter, we administered NEWA in mathematics, so I have the results on the 5th page for that, broken out into the 5 quintiles of achievement. Looking at the green and the blue, those represent percentile scores of 61 through 100. Those are what we use as a predictor for proficiency with New Hampshire SAS. We anticipate that our students who are high average and high in NEWA will be marked proficient or highly proficient in SAS. We came up with that number in consultation with our NEWA data analysis individual who has been working with schools in the state in order to make the connection between NEWA performance and anticipated New Hampshire SAS performance. The mathematics testing from the winter session is consistent with the previously reported fall numbers. They are only differing by a handful of percentage points, which actually represents a good thing because as the number of instructional weeks increase as we go through the year, the performance metrics similarly go up. So a student proficient in the fall and remaining proficient in the winter is an indicator of growth because it is time to when the school year the test is taken. Another thing to remind the board is that these norms against which our students are evaluated and set into these percentile ranges are based on pre-pandemic norms. So these performance data was based on school years 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. So that is the benchmark against which our current students are being evaluated. Our third sub-goal of the first LEAP goal is to advance student learning in the area of science. In grades 5 through 8, we have the SAVIS Science Elevate program. that is fully aligned with the next generation science standards. We continue to have mystery science available in grade 5, both of which will be able to integrate with Schoology fully next year. Moving forward, our grade 5 and 8 students who take the New Hampshire SAS science test, we're going to look at those results as they become released. Again, looking to make changes where needed in order to make sure that all the material is covered at the appropriate depth of knowledge level for our students. And our second lead goal is to increase and encourage a positive climate by using data-driven multi-tier positive student discipline model, so our PBIS method. This has been especially critical, as we've heard from previous presentations, with the full reintegration of students, everyone coming back in the building, a bit of growing pains here and there for adjustment period. So this program has been especially necessary. The PBIS team meets regularly in order to discuss our character development rollouts. New this year, you'll see a copy of our positive student write-ups for our students who are caught in the act of doing something above and beyond to demonstrate their pause pride. Their teachers are able to fill out this positive referral form, which comes down to the office, and then we have the pleasure of calling down students for a good reason. They get a copy of the form, they can bring it home, put it on the fridge, and then we retain a copy for a monthly drawing for incentives. So this has been a hit with our students and with our staff. We also had Random Acts of Kindness Day in February. We continue to collaborate with local agencies, including the Goffstown Police Department, who offered presentations on internet safety in the presence of the Goffstown Comfort Canine at regular school events has also been a hit with students and staff and myself. We have our character development rollouts every month where we highlight one particular trait that teachers are going to be looking to introduce in authentic experiences with our students. Our Mtss Committee, which has been reinvigorated this year both for academics and for behavior, continues to address any concerns and come up with positive strategies for mitigating negative student behaviors. Our Future Ready Skills Committee is providing monthly teacher-led faculty PD at our staff meetings. We've done book studies on social emotional learning in the classroom, and then this year, critically, with the Teacher's Guide to Trauma, which has been very helpful in informing our teachers how to deal with trauma-impacted students. Next year, we're going to continue to roll out some new protocols for PBIS. We're developing a citizenship rubric. One of the things that is reported in our report cards is a citizenship score, and we formalized the process for what that means so it can be universal across our teachers. And we continue to look at the Pause Pride behavioral matrix. As you heard, we've been working with the business office, with Mr. Gross and Ms. Kelly, in order to bring the Second Step digital platform, which has been very useful, through to the elementary schools, which contains relevant, authentic, real-time lessons in character development, managing and recognizing big feelings, showing empathy for classmates, all of which has been exceptionally critical. Enrichment activities, we've had some numerous opportunities for our students before and after school. One of the most successful has been our chess club with 5 sessions run throughout this year, 33 students participating in the largest session. And going to these meetings, it represents a true cross-section of Mountain View. Students of all grades, academic abilities are going to these club meetings, learning how to play chess, building social skills, all of it. It's fantastic. Including we had a donation of an outdoor giant chess set by the Mountain View Partnership, and we got to use that today on our field day outside. So we had some students moving some large chess pieces, which was fantastic. Other Pause Pride educational opportunities in all grade levels. We've had field trips being offered that tie in directly with curricular standards and lessons that they're learning in the classroom. We had our artist in residence last month, the Aquaba Ensemble, which was led by Theo Marty, who is currently the New Hampshire Artist Laureate, presented performance on African drumming from his native Ghana, and led a workshop throughout the week where students were able to practice on instruments and make music. And finally, as we look at safety, we continue to reevaluate our drills, long-term, short-term, shelter-in-place, reverse evacuation, very critical activities. Our safety committee meets to go over and conduct some tabletop exercises. We have included some summer PD for the committee to continue to meet, iron out any areas of inefficiency that might exist with regards to safety. And we've had a couple of updates, including to our camera system, as well as a new board that is in the main office that alerts staff if there are any doors during the school day that are unlocked, propped, ajar, so that we can see in real time what needs to be done.
Wow, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Oh, sorry, Shane. I thought I saw your hand up.
The citizenship rubric.
Yeah.
Could you just describe that a little bit?
Sure. When we issue trimester report cards, students are given not only an academic score in all subjects, they're also given by their teacher a rating based on their citizenship, how they are able to model Pause Pride in the classroom. They can either get a V for very good, G for good, or N for needs improvement. For something that's subjective, there has been a request from teachers and students and administration to kind of have a uniform way of coming up with these scores. So that way students are evaluated the same within and among different grade levels. So that is currently in development with teacher input.
So it's almost like an equivalent to like some places do like 21st century learning kind of where they like academic, civic, social. So it's kind of like equivalent. Okay.
Exactly, and it does tie in because it is the development of this rubric was one of our priority areas that was addressed in the last NEAS and C report. So it ties in nicely with that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Anyone else? Go ahead, Jenny.
You mentioned in 7th and 8th grade, you offer algebra and geometry for some advanced learning.
And
you offer world language as well.
that is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so for our students who are reading on grade level, we offer to parents the option to enroll them in French or Spanish as a world language. The 2-year program through grade 7th and 8th corresponds with the curriculum that they would have as a freshman in French or Spanish 1 year. And that's also an area of summer PD that we're looking at to increase the alignment between the middle school and the high school programs.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. That was very informative.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hamill. And lastly, the closer this evening.
All righty.
Mr. Farley.
Good evening, thank you. I'm going to start. I have a couple of LEAP goals that I want to talk about, and then I have some scores on different grade levels, different subject areas, and a few observations I have on those scores. And kind of intertwined in there are some next steps and a couple of new things that have happened since the pandemic, things that we'd like to hang on to. So the first LEAP goal I'd like to talk about is a recurring one. It's on literacy support. It's on reading, writing, research skills and strategies in all the content areas. And as I said, it's a recurring one. It's one that we just believe is a big focus. It's part of our mission. We don't feel like it's ever done, so you're going to probably hear about reading, writing, and research across the content again and again, at least as long as I'm here. It's become a standard practice. It's not something that we are pushing or monitoring or incentivizing. Teachers just do it in their class now. I think across the board, if you go into any classroom or look at any class curriculum, you'll find that these activities are just built in. They might not be every day or every month, but just about every class has at least one good, solid, long-term project in this area of reading and writing. And I gave some examples. For example, in the sciences, there are a couple of books that are read across the board, every kid will get this, that are not science textbooks. They're books about science. They're books for consumers of science. Not all of our kids are going to become scientists, but they need to know how to read science. Our librarian in the past couple of years has put together a general sequence on how to actually build a research question, how to research, how to write a research paper. So it's a standardized, it's not just accidental that they might get it in this class or they might not get it in the other class. It's built in right now. Science is using a claim, evidence, reasoning approach to writing. It's how to build a hypothesis, and if it's in social studies, they might call it a thesis statement. But that type of writing aligns to the SAT. It aligns to the state reading and writing standards. It's not about writing a standardized report of information that's organized. It's about making a claim and constructing an argument. So as I said, those are just built-in practices here across the board. Now, I'm thinking of looking in the future. There's turnover every year. We were all big guns on this probably 4 or 5 years ago, where we had district-wide training in close reading strategies. As we have turnover in the building, we need to kind of tune that up and refresh that a little bit. So I look at that as a next step in that area, continuing to do what we do, but bringing our newer employees on board with that. We also have a focused LEAP goal, a continuing and recurring goal around mathematics, mathematical problem solving. And again, there has been a big change, if you think over the last 2 years, on performance tasks in all classrooms, modeling activities. Students are solving problems using real-world data. It might be researched, or it might be, for example, our Algebra 2 teachers might bring a physics apparatus in and launch ping pong balls and look at differences and gather data. So that's just become kind of a standard practice in almost all of our math classes. Now, again, I don't want to give the impression that this is happening every single day, because it's less efficient in teaching than it is direct instruction. But it's an element and a layer of instruction that every kid is getting now. The other thing, and I have to say, this has been reduced due to changes in instruction with hybrid learning, is the SAT integration. We're looking at teaching kids basically the format of the SAT question. The content of the SAT and the content of the coursework is aligned, but sometimes the SAT test presents it a little bit differently, and kids, we want them to learn that this is the same thing that you've learned in class. So that's is, again, a general practice, and we're hoping to increase the SAT part, as I said. Right now, what we're discovering is that there are gaps. Last year, yes, students had home learning hours and in-class learning hours, but there are gaps. And we're looking at right now doing a real close analysis of what we taught last year, what we needed, or this school year, what we needed to recover during this school year, and looking at ways that we can most efficiently fill those gaps. We want kids to still reach the same outcomes. So basically, we want to do more in the same amount of time, but we want to be very efficient about what we're teaching so that kids can get back onto a normal level. The third LEAP goal and the fourth LEAP goal, which I will get to, these are follow-up goals based on the NEAS&C report that we received in the 2017-18 school year. That's the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. They accredit high schools, and they made a couple of recommendations. Well, they made more than two that we have, but the LEAP goals, we have two because these areas seem to cluster. So the first area was around feedback. It was our feedback as teachers to students and how that improves learning, and also accepting student feedback to us, whether it be library feedback, classroom teacher feedback, guidance feedback, the nurses' feedback. That was their recommendation. So we've kind of built a LEAP goal around that. The first thing, probably the most widespread practice as a result of this goal, is we looked at a number of survey systems and surveys around teaching practice. And we put together, the lead teachers and myself put together a fairly simple survey based on these questions and offered it out to teachers as on a volunteer basis. Would you like to give this to your students and have them comment and give you feedback on their learning experience? And we had a number of takers. I want to continue to explore that. We had a number of takers, and I think our teachers get good information from it. I hope they do. The other area is we're looking at what's currently called a pulse survey. And a pulse survey is maybe 3 quick questions, boom, 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 so you can just take the pulse of what's going on. And we've been putting a few of those kind of questions, particularly around students' experiences in school, whether it is the quality of their teaching, how they feel like they're being treated, do they feel like they belong here, how do they like the lunch, those kind of very quick questions. And those have been kind of embedded at the end of the Grizzly Buzz, which is it's our video newscast that we do in homeroom. And, we've got mixed results on them, mostly because students, a low number of students are actually filling the survey. So we're working to continue with that, see if we can get more responses to that, see if there's any value to us or to students on that one. And the final LEAP goal, again around the NEAS&C cluster of recommendations, was around depth. A general observation was that we were not getting in-depth, deeper, higher learning kinds of experiences for all kids. So it was a matter of looking at how deep, how complex our tasks, our assessments, and we chose to look at a framework. It's called DOK. It's been around for quite a bit, and that stands for Depth of Knowledge, and it's a scale of 1 to 4, and there are descriptors. So a question such as ABC might be a level 2 DOK, and if you change that to something else, it might be a level 3 DOK. So we began taking an analysis in departments at our midterms and finals. So let's go through the questions that we're expecting kids to respond to on a midterm and a final, and let's, as a team, analyze the DOK, or the depth of knowledge, on these. And are we seeing what we want to see? Are we giving a lot of fact questions, which would be a DOK 1, or are we asking kids to explain, which would be a DOK 2? And from there, we're looking at revising these midterm and finals. And also, teachers are learning more about how to use DOK. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of transfer into other assessments and into instruction. That one, I have to say, there are higher priorities right now, given that we're coming back from a pandemic. And so that one I want to keep. But I can't report that we've done a heck of a lot more than looking at our assessments on that one. A couple of keepers that I want to say that we've learned from the pandemic that are definitely keepers, even though we're not doing hybrid or remote learning. We're looking at the way technology has helped us communicate with both students and parents, and it's become second nature for us to communicate that way, so there's been much better communication. You've heard we're looking at a Schoology platform for next year. Well, our teachers now, in a very, very short time, came up to speed on how to use these kind of learning platforms for delivery of information. It's come, in a very short time, a long, long way from the old Moodle approach that we had. And we're hoping that the skills are transferable so that Schoology will be just as easy to implement. Part of what teachers did last year, they did an awful lot of creating and collecting of digital instructional materials, whether they're videos that teachers have made, whether they're YouTube videos that they have captured, whether they are just digital text materials that they have captured, organized onto curriculum frameworks. Right now, those things didn't disappear, so those are still really good resources. And we're finding if students are absent, materials are always there for them, whether they're the homework assignment or the video of their teacher showing them how to do something in a mathematics class. Those are keepers for us. The other thing that changed is laptops. Before the pandemic, a teacher signed out a cart, wheeled the cart into the classroom, used it, wheeled it back to the library. And now we have systems in place that we put in place because of the pandemic, where students can access a laptop for a period at a time. They don't need to borrow the whole cart. There's a spot, there's a repository, there's a way of cataloging who gets what, and kids actually can bring laptops, whether to their study halls or into classrooms. The availability of the laptops it's definitely a keeper. The other thing is our use of spaces. Our lunch periods now are not restricted only to the cafeteria. And we're finding that kids have better social time when they are able to stroll, when they are able to sit in, for example, the benches in the lobbies. It's a better environment socially for kids, and it seems to be working. I'm seeing the nods. I'm happy to see that.
Harder to supervise.
It is. Yes, it is.
So administratively, it's easier to put them all in the cafeteria and have 3 or 4 people there. You know where they all are. This
Yes.
is a little more challenging.
But doable.
Yep.
Yep. I want to talk a little bit of the supports, the enhanced support services that we have here right now, and the first 3 are ESSER funded. And Brian, please help me with that acronym.
Every student succeeds emergency, Mr. Gross.
Secondary school emergency response.
Okay.
Emergency COVID money.
The COVID money has helped fund hours and time for us to run a number of support activities. One, if you look, these numbers were as of May, so this is fairly accurate, up-to-date numbers. We've had 80 students and 151 visits to the AM homework den. We've had 85 students and made 200 visits to the PM homework den. And that money has also funded SAT and assessment literacy workshops, classes after school, and we had 38 students participate in 5-week sessions.
Mr. Farley, I would also add that National Honor Society students are available for tutoring during every single block of the day, including after school and evenings.
That I missed. Thank you. We also have a position, it is a student support specialist that is housed right here in the Grizzly Den, and these are for students who just struggle. Sometimes it's getting along, sometimes it is executive functioning, and this position is open for kids to come into that Grizzly Den during their prep times, and they receive academic support, they receive social support, they receive the executive functioning support, and I can say from my observations, if you were to walk into that room at any time, there'd be a good solid handful of kids sitting at tables, working with the teacher in there and getting the job done. I don't know the long-term outcome of that. I see what is happening in place, and it appears to be working very well. The other thing is a student support is we purposefully built our master schedule for next year to keep the numbers in the core classes as low as we could make them. We've known all along that the honor students tend to be a little bit more self-sufficient. And so those classes, first of all, nothing ever goes above 24. Those classes are around the 20s, but by making them a little bit bigger, we were able to open up spaces and have the open classes. We offer more sections of them, and they're a really nice number for students so they can get the attention that they need. As I said, we're looking at filling gaps. I think it's easier to fill gaps when you have smaller class sizes. So that was the intent of that piece. Should I move on to the numbers? Okay, I'm looking at a set of numbers. They're assessments pretty much from the highest grades going down. So I'm going to start with the AP, and although AP is, we offer AP courses in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, the majority of them are 11th and 12th graders. And a couple things. I'm putting 4 years there because we've got pre-pandemic years, pandemic year, and after. So 18 and 19, these dates represent the spring dates because that's when the test is given. They're given in May. So 18 and 19 we might call normal years. And the participants stay about the same and the pass rate stays about the same. Now 20 was when every single student took that AP exam on a computer at home. And if you look, the numbers, participants stay about the same and the pass rate stays about the same. In 21, that was the year when kids were in school half-time. The numbers of participants skyrocketed to numbers we haven't seen 10, 15 years, and the pass rate stayed about the same. And in 2022, the numbers of participants came down to pretty much the normal rate, and I don't have scores yet. Those aren't released until July. But my point here is that aside from the numbers jumping, and I can't predict why that happened, our pass rate seems to have remained the same whether we were in school full-time, out of school half the year, and remote. On a remote learning where some kids took it on computer and some kids took it paper and pencil, didn't seem to impact any of our scores. And we'll see what happens this year. You'll hear next year on that one. My thoughts, my guess, which I think I would like to spend more time researching, is that these students are our highest achieving students, and our highest achieving students tend to be more self-sufficient, and I think they tend to be more independent learners. I don't know the answer. That would be my hypothesis. That's what I'd like to look at the data more closely. But it doesn't seem like our pass rate was impacted by COVID or the format of the test or the format of the instruction. The others now, when you look at the SAT and the PSAT, which we give in all grades, I'm looking at two sets of data for each grade level. So if you look at 11, if you look on the left, those are the average scores. If you look at the dark bar going down on the left, that's pre-COVID, post-COVID. And if you look on the right, you're going to see the College Board sets a benchmark and the percentage of kids that met the benchmark. In general, the year that students took, okay, let me back up. On the SAT grade 11, you won't see a 2020 score because it was not administered in 2020. The 2021 score, that was coming back after the students had missed a quarter or a semester of school. There wasn't much of an impact on their scores. But the following year, the year following the hybrid learning, there was an impact. And that was at the state level and at the school level. We took the hit the year... National as well, yes. Yeah. We took the hit in our scores the year of the hybrid learning when kids were half in school and half out. And you're going to see the same trend for grade 10. Now these scores, if you look at 18, 19, 20, 21, that's because these students test in the fall. So the test came in before we were sent home from school. So that's why we have all of the dates, but it's the same thing that happened. The testing immediately after we were sent home had little to no impact. The following year, after we were on hybrid, we took the hit. Same in all areas, and math took the bigger hit. And that's the same trend you're going to see for grade 9. And we took hits in the number of kids meeting the benchmark, and we took hits in the average test score. We still are performing above the state, but if we're competing against ourselves in the year before and the year before that, we took a hit following hybrid. And finally, the science is a tough one because It was piloted in 17-18, so the scores really didn't come out. In 18-19, it was the first administration of it, and we got a basic baseline score. It's the first time anybody took it. In 19-20, there was no testing because of COVID. And in 2021, I don't have state norms yet because the testing window is closing sometime in June. What I can say is that in all the areas, we do outperform the state in science. And that's about the best I can say at this point, but we'll have scores for this later in the month, perhaps in July, for this school year.
Thank you, Mr. Farley. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to send all the administrators home except for Mrs. Kohler, who's going to stick around at least through my superintendent's report, if you would, Wendy. And the rest of you, thank you so much for being here. Please go home.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. All right.
Appreciate everyone staying.
Yes, definitely. All right, so we're going to get on to our committee reports. So A&F report, manifest, Dan, Scott?
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
First of all, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a manifest for June 6, 2022 in the amount of $3,119,692.95.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second? Was that you, Ellen? Okay, go ahead, Dan.
What we have are the payroll taxes and benefits, 2.5 million of that. We have sped activity of little over $112,000 of that. Much of it transportation, out-of-district placements. We have, I can go through them individually, 47,000 for Durham, about 12,000 for Johnson, ABA Consulting, 11,000 for Lighthouse School, the Birch Tree Center, another 11,000. Laser Works, some contracted services for 8,200. Spalding Academy out of district, 6,600. And we have the Safe Wheels for 5,700. Some North Star Education, more contracted services, $5,400. And a new transportation from Any Events for $5,250. And our general expenses amount to about $384,619.52 about. That's pretty accurate. SAU 19, $108,000. Manchester School District for MST, they're pretty behind on their billing. This is for the first semester, $57,414. WEI is the I think that was the security IT milestone server, 37.6. We talked about that at one of the previous and gave permission to go ahead and get that up and running. Beltronics is for a deposit for the handheld radios that we're replacing. That's part. You'll probably see some more a little later. Eversource, our electricity, about $29,000. Amazon school supplies and equipment, $26,500. We are going to be getting a more detailed report at the A&F meeting of what that will be in the future, so we'll know a little better rather than just a big number. Town of Goffstown sewer, 20 grand. DL King and Association, we know that's the windows, 15,000. Home Depot Pro, several years ago, we went over them with custodial supplies, about 14,000. Budget document, the quarterly, the copier and printing management, 12.5. Macmillan Holdings, that's curriculum and books, 7,200. SGS Turf Care, that's the field maintenance at both the high school and Mountain View, 7 grand. Townsend Press Book for books for curricula, 6,300. Morin Contracting, we had a chimney over at Maple Ave that was no longer in use. It was starting to degrade, so we actually took it out, and that was from the top to the bottom, so that included everything. And when you take out a chimney, you also have a gapping hole in the roof. So that isn't there. That got fixed too. Blick Art Materials for some supplies, about 5,100. And then, of course, we have the food, 27,400. That are the 5,000 and over vendors.
All right, thank you, Dan. Anybody have any questions or comments for Dan or Scott? All right, seeing none, we have a motion, we have a second. Take a vote. All those in favor of passing the manifest, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
All right, Scott?
So the second item is basically, we try to wrap up some of our capital type projects, and ones in which you are using funds from the Capital Reserve Fund. The reason being is that we're requesting the trustees the reimbursement for that. So you should have a sheet in front of you for these completed projects. You'll note that there were 2 projects that we utilized Capital Reserve funds, one of which was the Mountain View gutters for $3,254. And then that was the Mountain View cistern repairs, which was ultimately, we spent $162,025. You'll recall that we had set an initial budget of $155,000. So in total, we would be seeking from the trustees a little over $165,000 of reimbursement. And you'll see below is a motion that I would appreciate that be made that would try to encapsulate the purpose of what we're seeking to do.
Does anybody have any questions or comments before we do the motion? Ellen?
No question, I was going to read this.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to withdraw $165,279 from the Facilities Capital Reserve Fund held by the Town of Goffstown trustees of the trust funds and deposit it into the Capital Projects Fund, of which $3,254 will fund the MVMS gutter project and $162,025 will fund the MVMS cistern repair project.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. Any further discussion before I do a vote? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
And the second page that I provided you is just simply a Capital Reserve Fund history. And as I corrected a couple of weeks ago, a question that Jared had asked, we have after July 1st, we have authority from the voters to put another $200,000 into the Capital Reserve Fund. So around July 15th, it'll hit that account. You'll have about $475,000 in the Capital Reserve Fund. However, you have a replacement scoreboard, which we hope to be installed in the next week or two. That's about $30,000. And then we have the theater renovation project, which has a budget of $300,000. So at the end of the day, you'll have about $145,000 in your CRF remaining. So I just wanted to let you know that. That's it.
Thank you, Scott. All right.
Thank you for this summary, Scott. Appreciate that.
All right, moving on, Budget Committee report. Jared?
Budget Committee will be meeting tomorrow. It will be a roving Budget Committee, starting at 6 p.m. at Bernard Park, moving to the police station, and then finishing at Fire Station number 19 in Bernardville. So this is kind of the precursor of some of the building reviews so that they can also understand some of the capital improvements that might need to occur in those buildings that will be used during the budget season. After that, there will be another roving Budget Committee tour on June 21st to finalize some of the other buildings within the town. I know I have talked with Mr. Gross about doing school reviews. We have looked at polling the administration. They said they would like to do it after school versus Saturdays. Unfortunately, the time to do it would be in June, and it's kind of tight for the Budget Committee with all the other things going on. So I think that the best plan of action would be to do it in the September timeframe when we come back. I know that our administration will be a little bit burdensome for the getting back to school activities, but I think it would be a better use of time for our administrators to really show some of the improvements that will need to go into the budget season as well. So that's my proposal that I will be sending to the town, unless if somebody disagrees with not doing it at the beginning of the school year.
I think that's good.
Great. And we'll break it up to try to do the elementary schools first, and then either the middle school separately from the high school or together with the high school. So I'll be looking to the administration to help me on planning that.
Okay. sounds good. All right, thank you, Jared. P and C?
Yes.
Retta?
I know at our last meeting, I announced that it was our last PNC meeting, but we neglected to elect a chair. So we met briefly this evening, and I was reelected as the chair, so just wanted to let you know that. Also, we're working on the self-evaluation, the board self-evaluation, and it's going to be moved online, so it'll be an electronic survey, and that will be coming out. Brian, you thought you could get that out tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so within the next couple of days, we're looking to have that completed sometime early next week so we can compile the results and get them out to all of the board members prior to the retreat. And just a reminder that the compiled document is a public document. So please be aware of that when you're filling out the survey, that this will go back out to the public or be available to the public as requested. And also along with that, we'll have some guiding reflective questions so that prior to the retreat, you can think about the results of the survey because it's 50 plus questions. We're not going to go through every single question, but rather have you review the results prior to the meeting, and we'll have discussions around that. One other thing I just wanted to let you know is that I presented the bells for the retiring teachers for the middle school. We have 2 more sessions, one at Goffstown High School on June 15th at 11 a.m. and one at Maple on June 14th at 9 a.m. So if anyone is interested in presenting the bells, it's fun to do. It's kind of off hours for those that are working. Just let me know either if anyone wants to do it. It's open.
I can do 11 o'clock on the 15th.
Which one? June 15th at 11?
That's the high school, did you say?
Yes.
And
That's
when were
the-
the others?
Maple is June 14th.
Oh, 14th.
June 14th.
At what time?
9 a.m. in the driveway.
Oh, nice. All right, so Ellen, let Retta know if
I
any
can
of
do
those.
Maple if you can.
No, I can do them both, but
Oh.
I just want to.
You do Maple, I'll do Mountain. How's that?
Yeah, high school.
High school.
Okay.
If you go to Maple Ave, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah.
Or
All right, did you get that?
That's been my life the past month, so
Maybe send an email.
I'm getting used to that kind of thing. I really am.
Thank you, Ellen.
And you'll just need to pick up the bells ahead of time at the SAU office.
Okay, and someone will give me the names and I'll see Denise. When can I pick it up? Okay.
And we will not be meeting again until October, and we'll go back to the first Monday of the month.
Thank you, Retta. Policy review has not met. We're not meeting in June, and we hope to start meeting up again in September. Further on in our agenda, we do have second reads and questions. We have a lot of policies to go over. C&E?
We did not meet in June. Instead, we brought our meeting to you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will have no more meetings until September.
Awesome. Facilities Planning Committee?
I want to apologize to Ms. Moore, and I thought I had provided the date before the agenda went out, but we're planning on meeting on June 15th at 7 p.m. in here in this room. We will be finalizing, hopefully, our final deck that would then be presented to the school board with the recommendation from the group. I have sent out the draft for the community members to continue to fill out so that we can have that meeting and have it be very direct. Looking at our school board schedule, I don't think it's appropriate to do this during our retreat like we had talked about at our last meeting. I think it might be best to actually do this potentially in September when we come back. That way it's publicly televised. Everybody can see the presentation as we present it with the recommendations and questions that we might have. So that's the approach that I'd like to take with presenting to the school board. Again, I look to the school board to say, yes, we should do that, or no, we should actually do it at our next meeting.
No, I'm good with doing it on TV. I think that's important. Everybody okay with waiting until September? Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
could-
Ellen, go ahead.
Can I ask Jared a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Did I respond to the survey?
It was a presentation that was sent out to you. So the rule was, if we missed anything, or if you wanted to add any
I'm
other
reading that.
recommendations,
Okay.
to send it back to Mr. Gross by the Friday beforehand, so that I can consolidate it and send it back out to the group for what we'll actually be presenting.
Yeah, so you have to get any comments, additions, whatever,
I didn't
by this
send you.
Friday.
I didn't send it to you?
No, I haven't gotten any yet.
Could you send it to me again, please? Could you send it to me again, please?
Go ahead, Dan.
So the question I have is, what were your thoughts? Because we could get a very high-level 30,000-foot response at our meeting in June. That way we have several months to think about it and have the bigger presentation in September.
I have no problem presenting it to the board once the subcommittee kind of votes to approve the recommendation.
And
I
you
have
won't
no
have
problem
that.
sharing
You won't
that
have
with
that
you.
by our next board meeting.
I hope to have it by the conclusion of the meeting on the 15th, to say, okay, this
Okay.
is our recommendation to go forward.
Okay.
But we can send it out, have a couple months to look at it, but I think it would be good for, the way that we're kind of going through it
Yeah.
is we're trying to have it more of telling a story of, here's the assumptions and facts as we understand them. Here's the analysis that we've done, when we had the demographic survey. And then here are our recommendations. We threw a lot of, if you excuse the term, we threw a lot of pasta on the wall to say, these are all the recommendations that we've come up with based on our analysis and facts. And out of all of the recommendations, or out of all the suggestions, here's our true recommendations we're moving forward with. Whether it's looking at building a new school, full-day kindergarten, we're kind of putting recommendations out there for all of those items.
Okay, I just don't want to lose any momentum, is what I'm thinking about. Because that's, a 3-month wait to get us rolling again, and I don't know if there was anything as a group we could think about by just, I'm trying to find a good comparison of what you want to do to keep doing another something. So just a tidbit of information without anything to try to keep our appetite.
Yeah, from a facilities planning committee, I hope to just have this one last meeting, and then that committee would dissolve.
Okay.
But I have no problem sending the initial report out to the group right when it's been made, the recommendation's been made. I think it was just more of presenting it to the public.
I would love to present
Yeah.
it to the public in September. Absolutely, or in our minutes in June,
Yeah.
or even if we do it twice.
Yeah. But I will make it ready. It will be there if we want to look at it during our retreat.
Yep.
But if we want to kind of table it to the side, again, I'll make sure it's available to everybody to look at.
Okay.
Thank you.
That sounds like a plan. All right, so you're good, Jared, with facilities then?
Yep.
Okay. CIP is not on here, but Ellen did have an update real quick, so
Yep.
CIP?
The group has started already. Jim Raymond is the chair from Planning Board. And the school district our CIP is on the 30th of June,
Okay.
6 o'clock. So the process has started already, okay?
Perfect.
It's a nice group, a lot of people who are familiar with the process.
Did you say June 30th?
Yep, that's what it said.
Okay.
Is that here in the library, or is that at the town hall?
CIP.
Scott, do you have a different
6
date?
o'clock.
I thought it was late. I thought it was in July.
It says school.
I'm on, we'll have to talk.
Let me confirm where it is, because mine says school, so.
Who has the
I'll have to
calendar
confirm.
scheduled for this room? That would help,
I'll confirm the location, Scott.
because if it's June, they probably have it reserved already.
Okay. So are you all set then, Ellen?
That's fine.
Okay. So joint area board meeting is on June 16th at 7 PM at the SAU. That is the full board to just touch base on the area agreement. And then the SAU 19 Policy Review Committee is going to meet on June 16th at 6 at the SAU. So right before the full area. So,
Heather?
Yes.
Just an FYI, I won't be there because that's a CIP night.
right, you won't be at, yes, correct, I knew that. Thank you, Ellen. So just let us know if you can't make it to the area board meeting. And I think that's it with that superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try to be a little quick because I know it's already pretty late. So since your last meeting, we've had another incident of horrific school violence that occurred in Texas. We sent information out. I wanted to thank Mrs. Kohler on her recommendation for sending out information to how to talk about acts of violence with kids. I thought that was an important thing to send to parents. We have a new fire chief. I think at this point, people might have heard that Chief Murray is permanent, and Mr. Gross and I just learned last week he's also the new emergency management director, so we will continue to work with Chief Murray on all of our school safety preparedness. I had let the board know that we speculated that another round of public school infrastructure funds were going to become available, and Mr. Gross and I, our reading of the tea leaves was pretty accurate on this one. They announced today, the commissioner announced that they're looking at a $10 million fund. Last time it was 30, so just to give comparison, this is quite a bit smaller. And they said that they were going to prioritize districts that had not previously participated in the grant. This does not bode well for us because we actually got quite a bit of money in the first round of this, so we will plan to apply for several projects that we have discussed with the board already, and they said that they're going to be putting the application out this summer. So, Scott, that might be even news to you that this just came in from the commissioner this afternoon. They were going to put something in writing to us, but I haven't seen that yet. We have sent information out. The Department of Ed has brought in a vendor called Waterford Early Learning, and we have shared that information with our preschool and incoming kindergarten students. This is an online kind of free tutoring program for little children. As much as I don't want to put little kids in front of screens more than we already are, this does seem to be a good program. It's free for parents, so we've shared that information with our preschool and entering kindergarten families. We'll plan to do the budget committee tours, as Mr. Talbot said, in September. That's probably better at this point. We had a couple of dates that we had available, but September's fine. This year we've had permanent subs. I wanted to let you know that we plan to continue that practice of having dedicated specific substitute teachers who are kind of booked every day in specific schools. We always have a need for them, and we don't have more of these people than we have vacancies, but people really like the predictability of knowing I'm going to be at Mountain View or I'm going to be at Bartlett every day, and it's just kind of settling to people's schedules. So we are going to continue that practice. I wanted to let you know, if I haven't shared with you already, that our attorney who does all of our kind of labor relations work, Mr. Tom Clausen, is changing law firms. So Mr. Clausen is leaving Jackson and Hewitt and is starting his own firm, and we have intended to stay with Mr. Clausen. We've been happy with him. So that will show up as a change, that we're getting billed by a different company, but that's okay. Update on the Italy trip, that was something that we had shared. So I have one teacher who's now interested in chaperoning. However, the teacher is retiring. So at this point, that's not a deal breaker, but it complicates things a little bit that it's not a current employee, but I'm getting closer. I hope we have an answer. I'm trying to really resolve the Italy trip. We're still working on it. Mr. Gross has shared, and he and I are both going to continue to let boards in the community know that we have pretty significant concerns continuing into next year about busing. So interestingly enough, Goffstown busing has been better. Now remember, we combined a fair number of runs so that we have less buses on the road, but we've had less disruptions. The disruptions are all occurring in New Boston now. So whereas, when was it, Scott? November, December, January, February, we had a lot of late buses in Goffstown. Now we have late buses in New Boston. So every single day, it's at least I would say at least 4 days a week, usually 5, but we have buses that are delayed. So we're notifying parents as we go. The last day of school is June 16th, so I just wanted to remind people of that. I know that some people, 16th with the snow day.
15th.
I think it's the 15th.
15th.
Move from the 14th to the 15th.
So the last day of school, as Mrs. Moran said, is the 15th.
You just scared a ton of kids.
I'm sorry. Good. Go to bed, children. 181. Go to bed.
Lily's like,
I almost had my 181st day. I was so close, it just slipped out of my, oh well, that was close.
good try.
Graduation, I wanted to let you know that we're working very closely with the Fisher Cats, looking at the weather for Wednesday. I think high school graduation is going to be okay. So I actually spoke with our meteorologist this morning and got a little bit of inside story. The weather service that we pay for is only from November until April, but the meteorologists are wonderful, and I said, I need help, and they were more than happy to geek out on the weather with me. I'm not quite as convinced for Mrs. Kohler, happening at Wednesday at 2 o'clock, but the high school, I think at 7, is probably in really good shape. So we've talked about a couple of options for Mountain View if we need to make a change. Potentially, and again, I'm not making any announcements to parents, but we've looked at the possibility of pushing it 1 hour only on Wednesday, so looking at a possible 3 o'clock start instead of a 2 o'clock start, which might be enough to do it. The other option is our rain dates for the Fisher Cats this year are the next day. So our graduation and our promotion is on Wednesday, our rain date is the next day. The weather's not going to be any better on Thursday. It's actually going to be more precipitation, it looks like. Less chance of storms, but more volume of precipitation. So the other option was to move Mountain View until Friday was an option and Monday was an option.
Friday is not an option because there's another district that's using it during the day. I sent information out to parents today that the Fisher Cats management is having a weather meeting tomorrow, and they're going to give me a call in the afternoon with an update. Monday may be our only other option, but I should know by 2 o'clock tomorrow, and I will just get with Mr. Balke, give him information, and get information out to parents as soon as we can.
I do want the board to know if the weather looks a little questionable, I want to go. Because people have taken the day off, families have made plans. So we're gonna, it's hard, anytime you're outdoors, it's hard to make everybody happy on this. But my preference would be to continue with the day as planned, even if the weather is a little inclement, because I think we're gonna be better off. It's hard for people when they take days off of work, grandparents coming up, family parties, reservations. So my preference would be to go as scheduled. I think the high school will be okay at 7. I'm not as convinced with Mountain View, but we'll take a look at it and go from there.
Will the Fisher Cats management allow for it if it's that?
Well, that's the question, Dan. Mr. Cloutier's question of if they'll allow us, he's exactly right. They're a little particular about their grass. And they don't want people. There are 2 other updates I wanted to provide the board. It's my understanding that there is some kind of a petition going around that board members might have heard about that I want to share and speak about publicly. Last year through the budget process, we had 2 positions that we eliminated through the budget process. We have a high school and a middle school in-school suspension teacher, and both of those positions have not been utilized in several years. So Mountain View in particular, it's probably been about 3 years since we've had an in-school suspension program. The person who was the teacher in that program has been a substitute, has been kind of one of the utility people that we've used to plug into gaps during COVID. Through the budget process, we put those funds towards the 2 new IT positions that I spoke about earlier and that we have advocated for. I'm a little troubled by this in that no one has called me. So it's my understanding there are hundreds of people who have signed this petition, including children, which I have a problem with. So kids signing a petition, I don't know if their parents are aware of it. I don't know that I think kids should not be a part of any of this discussion, quite frankly. But I want everyone to know I've received 0 phone calls. Anyone who wanted to ask me any questions about this position, I've not received any calls, nor has Mrs. Kohler. So it's unfortunate that this petition is out there. The 2 affected individuals were notified in October that the positions were being eliminated. We did share information about other positions that are available. This wouldn't impact any other things like coaching or anything else that anyone may have. But despite the fact that I've been on the outside of this, I did want people to know, if you haven't heard, that there was this petition. We didn't have any public here this evening for anyone, so hundreds of people signing a petition. No one has called me, no one came to give public comment. So as far as I'm concerned, we're moving forward. And the last one was, the board is very aware of this situation. The public is less aware, but it's my understanding that there has been information posted online about a theft from a former MVP, which is the Mountain View Partnership. It's like our PTA at Mountain View. The board is very aware that money was stolen. I do want the public to know that we have known about this all along. We have been working with the Goffstown Police Department, with MVP. Mr. Gross and I have both been very involved in this, and people were questioning why the school board or the school district didn't put out a statement. It was not our money that was taken, it was MVP's money, and we did not feel it was appropriate or our place to put a statement out. So I understand that there has been a letter, I understand that there's been all kinds of information shared publicly, and people questioning. I did want to give assurance to the public that Mr. Gross and I knew as soon as this was uncovered. He and I have both been involved. We've been involved from a forensic accounting perspective. We've been involved working with the police department. So I did want people to know that sometimes information's not shared with the public for good reason, and this would be an example of one of those times. So again, I wouldn't share anything further, but I did want to give the community my assurance that we knew about this, have been on top of this. The board has been updated in non-public session throughout this process, and just because we didn't put information out didn't mean that we didn't have knowledge of that. So that's all I have. The only other thing I had, I didn't know if anyone, Retta, if you wanted to talk about the retreat agenda, or at this point I think we're okay with that.
Yeah, I think the agenda is pretty standard, what we talk about every year, you know, revisiting things. We will be looking at the mission and vision.
Yep.
And maybe, I think a lot of it is going to come out of the self-evaluation, so those topics can be added. For example, you know, what are the committees we have? Are the committees doing the work that we think needs to be done? So it's always been an agenda that is, you know, that can be adjusted. And then we'll talk about, you know, what are our spending goals, what are our goals that we want to do for the upcoming year or years.
So we've got that ready to go, and that'll wrap it up for the year.
And we have the building facility that we add to the agenda as well.
And it's on June 20th at St. A's at 3 o'clock.
Is that right,
And-
Mrs. Moran? Apparently
and
I'm
it's at the
not
New Hampshire-
entirely to be trusted with dates this evening.
New Hampshire Institute of Politics, so Denise will send out information.
Down the hill.
Down the hill.
Yep, it's the building on the right. We'll have signs.
Thank you.
All right, so is that it on
That's
that
it,
one?
thank you.
Okay, so we're going into old business, co-curricular stipend recommendations for FY '23.
Okay, well,
Is that this?
this has been a multi-year effort of the board. I have affectionately said that this has taken 2 teacher contracts and I think 4 budget cycles, but here we are. So I'm really excited, and I know that I speak for Mrs. McGrath when I say that the credit for this deserves and belongs to Mr. Gross. He has pushed this over the finish line. I think that he kind of took a very active leadership role in this process and has really worked hard to get this done. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Mr. Gross and give it to you from there, Scott.
Before you start, Scott, are we done with Mrs. Kohler?
I'd actually like to stay for co-curriculars.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
actually,
Because I co-facilitated with, Ginny was part of this as well.
Okay,
So
I just want to make sure you're not sitting there for too much longer.
apart from that, we'll throw her out and send her home.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Scott.
All right, thank you. So first off, I want to give you and those might be watching just a little bit of background. So yes, this has been a long-standing issue for the school district, school board, et cetera. A committee was formed a while back, and on that committee, Ginny McKinnon was the school board rep, Wendy was the administrator, and they both led a group of teachers, the union, et cetera, to come up with, a process in which we can say that we evaluated all of our existing co-curricular and athletic stipends, and then look to see what of the stipends that are not currently paid, what was the process in which they were going to be evaluated, and then proposed tonight, which you'll see for a stipend. So as part of that very long-standing effort, the co-curricular committee did a ton of work. Like I said, they evaluated a lot of different positions, and then they pretty much, Wendy drafted a memo, which was the committee's work, which you have before you. And with that, they kind of put a roadmap out there for both Kate and I to work off of in terms of what also needed to be done. So the first one was job descriptions, and so they did review the job descriptions that we currently had. They are kind of old, but they do exist. That is one piece that we're going to have on our to-do list, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We took a look at all of the stipended positions, so surveys were sent to all of our current advisors and all of our current coaches, and it asked them a whole series of questions: how many kids you got, how many hours do you spend during school, after school, et cetera, and that is the basis for a formula that we used in order to evaluate the stipend. In doing so, we probably looked at, there's well over 100 of these, and each one of those was evaluated by the principal of that school and or the athletic director. So I personally met with Justin, and then Kate and I also met with principals, et cetera. We also talked about, are there any things that we didn't know about? And then we had a few of those, so we had to go back and then send those surveys out. So with that, really what happened was in our evaluation, 3 actions happened. We modified some existing stipends, meaning that there were some that increased, some of them decreased, because the surveys that were submitted based upon their feedback, they're not spending as much time as they used to, and that was broadly acknowledged. So there are several that were lowered in terms of the stipend amount. There are several that you'll see are existing ones that have been going on for numerous years that teachers have been doing it, just haven't gotten a stipend. And then we have a couple, I shouldn't say a couple, probably 3 or 4, where they are relatively new, like a garden club, I think is one of them, at our elementary school. So there was a weakness where we didn't really have any stipended positions at our elementary schools, and you'll see in this proposal that is the case. Along with all of the work that the co-curricular committee did, they recognized the fact that, again, we have to do job descriptions, and we also have to have a process. So one of the things that you'll see here, which will go to the policy committee in the fall, is Kate and I looked at different co-curricular policies across many different school districts, and then we are proposing a revised policy to address this, so that we hopefully we won't find ourselves in this position, a few years from now. So the process, long story short, there is a process. There'll be a 3-year waiting period where there'll be a pilot of a club or a pilot of a sport. They'll be self-funded, or that club will not be getting a stipend, and then after 3 years, the board will decide whether or not they want to bring that club or that sport on. So I think we took a pretty holistic approach to that. With respect to the, some of the positions, you'll see that on the back page of this, has everybody got this one? So I'm pretty clear. On the back page in light blue are all of the proposed stipends. So you'll see, I'm not going to go through them because there are just so many of them, but the biggest emphasis here is that we now have stipends at our elementary schools where we didn't have it before. And the other biggie is that we have our performing arts, which has not been stipended, is now stipended. So the district will be collecting the revenue from these performances, and it'll be part of, the budget. So that's something that has been on our audit for 3 years, going, and we fixed that. The ones in red, these are the ones which were either eliminated or reduced from their current status. And again, this was based upon the survey results from the people doing the job and/or the administrators who made those recommendations. I did let, Wendy knows this, as well as I mentioned it, admin and finance, that there are a couple of athletic ones which we've had very low participation rates, but we did not make any changes. And the reason for that is one of them involves a girls team, and we have to be concerned with Title IX. So we just need to do a little bit more legwork, and we're just not prepared. We didn't want to hold that up, this whole process up, because we had 1 or 2 sports where we were toying with, maybe we just shouldn't offer it anymore. So with that said, I think we landed in a pretty good spot. We had put $40,000 into the overall co-curricular budget to address all of these. Quite honestly, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do all of them, and we were. Not only that, we have a little bit of wiggle room so that if something does change a year or 2 from now, we might be able to put another 1 or 2 on in the meantime. So with that said, are there any questions for me?
Go ahead, Jenny.
I have one question, and in designating these new clubs as pilot program, will that get us into trouble with, like, being a club and not being able to participate on the division level?
In terms of...
Calling it pilot, could that be like...
That's part of the policy. So everything that I mentioned is part of the policy that the policy committee will go through, in the fall.
Right.
And I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on things that I don't necessarily know the answer to it. I have to ask Justin Hoft, our athletic director, as to if we did bring on a club sport down the road, what would that look like in terms of competition? I don't know the answer, but it's something
No, I'm just hoping that if we use pilot, that a new sport that we bring on, we're calling it a pilot. They're in our pilot program for 2 years.
If we had something, we would register with the NHIAA, and we wouldn't say pilot.
So there wouldn't be any confusion. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to.
That's just our own term that we used in the policy, and if you
we wouldn't want to jeopardize kids being able to compete.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be confusion with those two words. Okay, I'm good.
That's a good thought, Jenny, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
So Scott, in terms of next steps.
So in terms of next steps, there really are, I have a motion that I gave to Ginny, and hopefully she can locate it. So I do want the board to accept this recommendation so that these stipends, would be in effect for the next school year. That being said, the next steps are job descriptions for all of these have to be done by October, and that'll be done between the administration. We'll get all of those done. The other next step is policy work. So it's a policy revision so that we have a clear process in terms of an evaluation of all of our co-curriculars on an annual basis. Are there any that we need to drop, or are there any that we need to add? And again, whether it's club, pilot, however we determine it, the process, long story short, has to get approved by the principal, superintendent of schools, and the school board before there will even be a pilot or a club. And then after a certain period of time, then it comes back to the board for final approval, or so you become part of this list. But then the board then budgets it. It's a cleaner approach. So that's the long story short in terms of next steps. It's job descriptions in the policy by the fall. But this action can take place right now, so we can.
I think there's one more step, Scott. Yeah. I think we would also need to engage with GEA.
So we've done that. So GEA has.
But hang on. Once we've finalized, we would probably want to have a memorandum of understanding to codify all of these positions, because they're actually part of the contract.
Yeah, that, I mean, I should mention that we met with the GEA. The GEA has signed off on every one of these. Every amended, every single one has already been signed off on by the teachers' union.
All
So
right.
whether we need to have another side.
Yeah, I think we would at the end, just
Okay.
as a wrap it all up.
Yeah.
So if there's no questions or comments, you have a motion to read?
Can I, just before I do this motion, can I just say thank you to everybody who has done things for our kids as advisors and coaches for years and years and years for free, giving up your time and your energy for our kids that have come to you and said, would really like to do this, could you do it, could you advise us, could you coach us, and have given time and energy for no pay. And thank you so much for doing that, because our kids have just gotten so much back from your time and energy that you've taken from your own families, and we really appreciate it. And I really wish this could have been finished a long time ago, but it really wasn't. So not for not trying,
Right.
but it wasn't. So, and thank you, Scott, for tying it up so quickly at the end. So anyway, the motion is, I motion to accept the stipend recommendations made by the co-curricular committee and the administration as outlined in the presented memorandum to Superintendent Bulkey, stated May 25th, 2022. The recommendations include modifications, deletions, and the newly added stipend positions as outlined in said memo.
Thank you, Jenny. Do I have a second? Second. By Ellen. Is there any further questions, discussions?
Just on the memo, we talked about the new positions. Did it say anything in there, Scott or Ginny? Do you remember if it said anything to the repositioned ones?
Yeah,
The
it's
red
in-
ones?
yeah, it's in the back. It's on the
they're in
back.
Yeah, I know, but did the motion?
In the motion.
Refer to that?
It does. It says
Newly added stipend
modifications.
positions.
Okay.
It is in the motion, yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we're good? We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, guys. Now you can go home, Mrs. Kohler. And Lily,
Break open the champagne.
it is late, and I know you have finals and homework. You are more than welcome to leave at any time. Don't feel you have to stay here all night.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Don't
fine.
ever
Yeah, please
feel
go.
that you can't leave, because I know this week is a big week for you
I
guys.
do have a government presentation tomorrow. so-
Yes, I know, big ones this week, so good luck. Good luck on
Thank
your
you.
finals.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mrs. Kohler. Appreciate that. All right, so moving on to GHS Theater Renovations
So
Project.
this one's a relatively easy one. There was we were going to initially come to you and ask you to do a phase of this project this summer. Unfortunately, what the contractor told us would be a small cost to do some of the work, turned out to be a much larger cost.
Yes.
And therefore, it makes no sense to try to do it in two phases. We'll just do all of the work. Essentially, just so you know, we were trying to do some of the lighting this summer and the replacement of the tiles, and the contractor said, oh.
Ceiling tiles.
Ceiling tiles. So, oh, it won't be that much more. We'll have to get a different lift, and it ended up being a lot more.
Yeah, a lot
So
of
there's
littles.
no sense in trying to, move things forward. We'll get it done next summer.
Well, it's the difference. Do you consider a little more?
That's too bad.
$1 million?
I considered 5,000 a little more, not 25 or 30.
You know,
so,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
just the definition. Is
Yeah.
10 million, a little amount?
I wasn't able to attend the meeting today, but what was stated was $20,000 more.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just-
a lot.
The thought process is with the chairs removed, they're able to have the scaffolding work
Yeah.
appropriate.
Just scissor jack, I mean, it's
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, you know what we could do with that kind of money?
Yeah. All right, so if anything else comes with that, let us know. All right, so now we have second read policies. So you've seen these once. Last meeting, we had questions. So tonight, the thought is to make motions on each of them and vote.
You want them separately?
Yeah, we should probably do them separately just to make it easy. So if we want to start with EB, with Joint Loss Management Committee.
I'll move to approve policy EB.
All right, so I have a motion from Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
I move to approve policy EBC.
All right, so that's Ellen. Do I have a second? By Shane. Thank you, Shane. All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
You wanna
Are
take
you
the
have been
next
voting?
motion?
You haven't been voting.
We'll go back
So
and
we
forth.
have one vote off for the last two.
I voted on the very last one.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, so just on the EB.
Did you vote on the first
No.
policy and the second one that just went through?
She voted on the second
The
policy.
second, not the first.
So EB,
So she would just be subtracted from the total number.
right, sorry, I didn't realize you left the room.
I need to get allergy pills.
No, that's fine. All right, EBCA, Emergency Response Plan.
Motion to approve policy EBCA?
Okay, by Shane, second by Ellen. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstaining, or, no abstaining, we're unanimous, it's getting late. All right, next one, EBCAR, Emergency Response Plan Checklist.
Motion to approve policy, or the regulation EBCAR?
Okay.
Second.
By Ellen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yay, opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Move to approve policy EC.
Okay, by Ellen, second.
Second.
By Shane. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Move to approve policy ECA.
Okay,
Second.
thank you,
Do the
Shane.
next one.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Motion to
EC
approve policy ECAB?
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Ellen.
We have a system.
Yeah, that's good. It works. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Motion to approve policy EDB?
Second.
Okay. All right, that was Shane and then Ellen. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Next one is KJA.
Move to approve policy KJA.
Okay, by Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Shane?
And just for giggles.
Yes.
I mean, KJA is not to
Eliminate.
approve
It's
it, but to
eliminated.
approve its elimination.
Right, it's, right. So,
There was another one we did the same way, so it's,
okay.
I think it'd be best if the minutes reflected
That,
It's-
what's recommended.
what the recommendation.
Yeah, what the recommendations are to the policy. So
Okay.
KJA, we're recommending that it's removed. So you amend your
Yes,
policy, your
yes.
amendment, Shane? Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay, KJ
Yes, so moved.
by Ellen, second by Shane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And the last one is KJ-R, Relations with Parent Organization and Booster Clubs.
Motion to approve regulation KJR?
Second.
All right, so we have Ellen and Shane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so that was all the second reads. So thank you, guys. And then we have a group that we had first reads last time. If anybody has any questions on them, you can take them now. If not, they'll come to our retreat June 20th for second read. Everybody's good with these?
I had a
All
question
right.
on one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
It was one where it talks about smoking,
Which policy?
you know.
It talks about smoking,
Yeah, it mentions like,
conduct on the
it might be
bus?
conduct, yep, it's like at the very beginning. Sorry, I highlighted it in my section. I'm just wondering if we should add vaping.
Oh, yeah, I
There
think.
is one that we did
There
add
is
that.
one.
We did,
We did.
We certainly should.
yes.
If it's not-
Because that is 99% of
Yes.
any
Yeah.
So, Caroline,
we
if
have.
you
I'll get it to Heather.
email it to me,
Yes.
and then if everybody's good with that, I will.
Even if we said including any form of
Of-
e-cigarette is probably
I know we
sufficient.
started doing that.
We did do that.
Oh, is it the one that
We
says
did
use
somewhere.
that.
of
I don't
alcohol is
remember what this
prohibited?
one is.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
What?
Number, on bus regulations, number 1, it says use of all tobacco products is prohibited.
What is the policy?
It is EEAECR, it's the reg.
Oh, it's the reg,
Yeah. EEAECR.
Oh my gosh, EEAE. Okay, and where is it?
Number 1.
Oh, use of all tobacco products is prohibited. So we can include vaping and would you say e-cigarettes?
I mean, it's
Well,
kind of covered under tobacco. I mean, it's still tobacco.
Is it still tobacco?
Well, not.
Well, not all of it,
yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think, yeah.
so,
I don't know what.
so vaping, so we should add
Device
vaping.
away.
Or we say electronic smoking devices or something like that.
Is that what e-cigarettes are?
Cigarettes would
Or,
cover
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Would e-cigarettes cover vaping?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So use of all tobacco and e-cigarettes, is that?
And any electronic smoking devices.
And
If
who
we
knows
make
what
it
they're
general.
gonna-
Right, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Inhalation.
yeah, they,
Smoking device?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
this will
what they
come back
use.
to us from the
they're not
committee?
smoking.
No, we'll
Yeah,
just
this-
add that in.
Question is, I wouldn't send it back to the committee.
No, it'll,
Forever.
when the second read, it'll be written in,
Okay.
unless
We'll do this at at the 20th.
the June 20th. So thank you, Caroline. Anybody else, anything with them? Okay, so you'll see those again, and then we'll be doing well with our policies. All right, so now we're on to new business, retirement stipend payments.
Mr. Gross, were we going to do these tonight?
No.
Or were we going to do these,
No,
we're going to
but
do these
I-
on the 20th, right?
We're going to do it on the
Okay.
20th, but I did let A&F know, and I'll let the board know that we do have a much higher number of retirements than we've had in years past.
Okay.
And typically, I take a look at our fund balance, and I'm like, okay, let's, can we pay them out of the existing year? And this year, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, so I'll come back to you, because I think there's 17 of them total. It's quite a bit.
17
And,
retirees?
yeah, we have some support staff too in there. So we're probably going to do a little bit of a hybrid, but we'll do that on the 20th.
When we look at total fund balance?
Everything, yep.
Okay. All right, propane and heating bid?
So I could also, as of today, add paper bids to that. So
Okay.
as I mentioned in A&F, this is a very, very unique situation we are with oil and propane and paper. So in the past, we've put out our oil and propane, paper, everything's gone out to bid. There have been years where we've simply gotten an extension or gotten a quote from the existing vendor, which is Dead River, and asked them for pricing and not gone out to bid. It's my recommendation, and certainly I would like the board's input, that this might be the year to not go out to bid on some of these and just see what, working with the town of Goffstown and New Boston, trying to, either negotiate or try to work with them, when is the best spot we'll get the best pricing. Typically in the summer, we get the best pricing. So you'll recall last year, I approached Dead River, we were at $1.16, they gave me a price in the low dollar, I think $1.32. We went out to bid, it came in $1.50 and change. It's a commodity, this stuff happens. For me, the last market rate that we paid this year as high as $1.98, I think as low, and then right now we're around $1, we just paid like $1.72. So if I can get anything between $1.50 and $1.72, like this summer, for the following school year for our budget, I'm taking that any day of the week. So that's why it makes me maybe a little nervous to go out, to bid, but because you're picking one particular time period that you can get a quote on, as opposed to trying to see where the market kind of goes. And then on paper, they're not giving out bids. So I got email today from my peers saying, hey, did anybody get any bids for paper? And people responded back, nope, Quill, Staples, W.B. Mason, nobody's quoting it, the paper market's too volatile. They're not bidding on paper. Nope, the market is too volatile. So they will not they're not submitting bids. Yeah. That's how bad it
There's a
is.
big
I got it
problem with paper
from
right now.
like 6 BAs. Hudson, Bedford, like they're all like, nope, didn't get anything.
What about milk?
Don't know about milk yet.
It's Megan.
I think
That's
Hood
Megan.
fixed the computer, didn't
Just if we can't buy milk, no.
You can buy, but they're not going to guarantee a price for you. So they're basically, they may not be positioned to say that they can reserve a certain quantity of paper and buy a ton of paper.
This is because the market is so volatile?
Yeah, the paper market. Yeah, we've had difficulties this year getting certain things like colored paper.
Yep.
It hasn't been easy.
So, we discussed this in A&F, and we just wanted to know what everybody's thoughts were. A&F, I think, was pretty unanimous in thinking of what Scott's recommendation was, but we wanted to know what everybody thought.
I would defer to Scott.
I would,
Dan?
Thank you.
Yep, we just need to be able to, I don't know if we have a policy, I think we may if it's over
You do.
a certain amount.
If it's over $50,000, we should be doing RFP, so.
Yeah, to allow.
You would have to waive your procurement policy for oil, propane, and paper.
Yeah, propane, heating oil, and paper.
Right.
To allow
so
administration
you want that
to act.
motion? You wanted to make that motion?
We either do that or we think about it and come back in 2 weeks.
June 20th.
And when we know a little more.
I think that's a good idea.
I would agree.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Because I know it's getting late. You good with that, Scott?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I
Okay.
just, like, I don't want to surprise you at the last meeting.
Yeah, no,
All of a
thank
sudden say,
you.
hey, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Well, and we're probably only buying number 2 heating oil here at the high school.
You don't buy a ton of heating oil here.
And we do at the SAU, but number 2 heating oil right now is over $6 a gallon.
Right, yeah, it's really
It's over
bad.
$6.
All right, so we'll come back to that June 20th. So
Yep.
now we're going to move on to school staffing.
Okay, we have a pretty busy sheet. So the top are notifications only, no action required by the board. So we have a couple of leave of absences. We have 2 track changes. I'd like to congratulate Kathy Kendall and Scott Mayotte, both moving from Bachelor's 15 to Bachelor's 30. So we will certainly congratulate them. We have 2 assignment changes. So the board may recall that our library media specialist resigned mid-year. We had somebody who was here for a while, but for next year, we were unsuccessful in finding a certified library media position, and the high school chose to take kind of an innovative approach of splitting it between 2 English teachers, which I like. So at least Mrs. Boschman and Dr. Murchison, they know the school, they know the faculty, they know what they want the program to be able to produce, and we're able to hire both of them because it's less than because the amount of time that they would actually spend in the library, we're able to hire them, 2 people as opposed to 1 person full-time who's certified. So this is a little bit of us making lemonade with a lot of lemons and no certified library media specialist. But I think it'll be better.
Do we have somebody to cover English?
So they were able to hire English. They've been successful. You'll see down below. No, you won't on this one. You'll see on the next one that we have another English teacher that I think they just processed.
Okay, so that's covered.
So those assignment changes are just, again, notification only, and then 2 student teachers. And just so the board knows, I have encouraged administration to welcome any student teachers back. I think we desperately need people to go into this field, so we're open for business for anyone who wants to do their student teaching here with us. For your approval, I'd like to offer my congratulations. This one came in a little late, but we are recommending the board approve teacher retirement for Donna Pinard, and congratulations to Donna. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, Jared.
With mixed emotions to accept the retirement of Donna Pinard.
Thank you, Jared. Do I have a second? By Shane?
I am recusing.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we have 1. You got all that, right, Denise? We're unanimous.
Thank you. For teacher nominations, we have 4 teachers we're bringing forth. 1 for Maple Ave interventionist, Megan Briggs, Bianca Parsons, Maple Ave special ed teacher. Sylvia Lewis, now you'll recall the Sylvia Lewis, this is the 1-year 504 position that you had already approved. So you're going to see two things. You're going to have Sylvia's approval, and you're going to approve a leave of absence from her administrative assistant position. And then lastly, they've been very excited that we've been hiring some great teachers. Erin Penault as a math teacher. So welcome to those new folks, and we would need approvals for the nomination and the leave of absence.
So when we do the leave of absence first, and then we'll do the nominations.
Great, and then I have some others.
Okay, so I need a motion for Sylvia Lewis for leave of absence.
So moved.
By Shane, do I have a second? By Retta?
You got it.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous, and now we'll do the teacher nominations. So I'll need a motion for the teacher nominations.
Move to approve the teacher nominations as presented.
Thank you, Jared. Second by Ginny, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, then lastly, I have a couple of others that we've listed, and let me kind of talk this through with you. So I'm going to start with the one that says MVMS Math Support 1 year. So that is going to be a part-time, it's actually going to be 0.4 FTE, full-time equivalency, so that's just under half-time. And this is going to be the other half of the elementary curriculum coach position. So right now, half of that position is going to be Dr. Chisholm as the elementary curriculum coach, and the other half of that, actually just less, 0.4, will be a MVMS Math Support 1 year. And specifically what we're looking to do is add 2 sections of accelerated math, which is available to 7th and 8th grade students. We're trying to keep our class sizes a little smaller. Those sections have been as large as 30 in the past. So we did not want to risk that next year. You know, looking at this where we know students have math deficits, we'd like to add that 0.4 position, which will allow us to offer 2 additional sections of advanced math. So that's the other half of the elementary curriculum coach. Now the top 2 positions, one says GHS 50% special ed teacher, and the other one says Glen Lake 50% interventionist. We have one full-time teacher from the high school that we did not purpose for next year because we had enough staff based on student selections for next year. So the high school held one position that we are not going to staff, and we're going to split that. So the 0.5 50% special ed, that is for math supports at the high school. So this is, again, you'll see a theme here. There's a very purposeful theme to try to introduce more supports for our students who are struggling with math. So right now, those top 2 positions will be staffed with a vacant position from the high school, and this would both of these would be a 1-year position. So we would ask for your approval on that. And then the last one at the very bottom, Maple Ave and Bartlett Library Media Unified Arts Support. The board will recall this is how we're going to offer the 4th planning period for elementary teachers. And the total cost for Bartlett, we're going from 3 hours a day to 3.9 hours a day, so a little less than 1 extra hour a day gets us there at Bartlett. And at Maple Ave, this would change a current library media paraprofessional position from 3 hours to 6.75. So it's a little more expensive at Maple. We're looking at an increase of $14,940 at Maple, and at Bartlett, it's $3,705. So for just about, a little less than 20 grand, we were able to fully staff both of those libraries to be able to offer that 4th planning period for the elementary teachers. So we would be asking for your permission to use an existing vacant high school position to staff the Glen Lake 50% special ed teacher and the high school 50% special ed teacher. And then the library paras, I'm very confident that we can accommodate that out of the existing para line. We, as the board knows, we've not been able to fill all of our para positions, so we would anticipate having money in that line next year as well.
Move to approve the 4 positions under other, as presented.
As presented.
Okay.
How would you like
It's
it?
not really 4 positions. It's
2, 3, 5.
It's increasing hours. It's 1 position
Okay,
doing
how
2
about
things.
move to approve the proposed staff changes as presented?
That works.
That works? Did you get that, Denise?
Yeah, that works.
All right, so we have a motion by Alan. Do we have a second? By Ginny?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you help me with that .4 you started with again?
The MVMS
Is that
math
brand new?
support?
So the .4 math teacher, the way that it works out as a .4, that's going to be teaching 2 classes a day.
Okay.
So it ends up being a little less than half time, because teachers at Mountain View typically teach 5 classes as kind of the standard, that's how many core sections.
With 1 prep period
Or one, they have one content literacy period as the 5th one. But this is going to be 2 classes, and mathematically it comes out to be about a .4. But this is going to allow us to have smaller classes for some of our larger math sections at Mountain View.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Jared.
I just want to make sure I understand this. So the second 2, are those reallocating current positions, or are these net new positions?
The first, do you mean the first 2?
The first 2 I understand is a vacant position that you're
The first 2,
repurposing.
right, the first 2 is a vacancy at the high school here that we didn't fill based on student course selections. The math support, the 1 year, that's that .4. That's the other half of the elementary curriculum coach, which had been vacant. So we were only able to fill that with a half-time person. Here's that other half. And then the paras are just increased para time.
So we still need to hire someone for the
We
math
we
support.
still need to hire someone for the math support, yes.
Okay.
Well, I think my question is we aren't necessarily increasing the budget, we're just moving money from one line item to
Exactly.
another.
There's no
Personnel changes.
There's no increase in positions.
The bottom 2, from my recollection and understanding, will come from unspent, unhired paras.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are unanimous. So we are done with school staffing.
We are.
Other business that may legally come before the meeting? No. Do we still have non-public?
We do.
Okay. All right, so.
Unless you want to put it off to the 20th.
No. But not.
I don't know what it is, so it's kind of hard to, is that a continuation
Yes.
of a previous?
Yes, we should do it
Yes.
tonight.
Why don't we get it done?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A 32C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or property of the applicant.
So moved.
By Ellen, do I have a second? Who second? Dan? All right, I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny? Yes. Jared?
Yes.
Caroline? Shane?
Yes.
Ellen? Dan?
Yes.
Heather? Yes, we are in non-public and we're going to go to the conference.
Yep, we'll go down.